Well, we can get started. McBride's taking a seat now. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to our budget summit 2024, and would like to start. And we have a very, very special, distinguished guest with a birthday today. So happy birthday, Pro Tem.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
46?
46. Awesome. Don't look a day over 72. Several people told me that.
Good. Well, and again, just to remind everyone that unless recognized by myself, by the speaker, by the Pro Tem, if you're not at the table, this isn't a press conference, and we're glad the media is here for transparency purposes, but we'll keep the conversation around this table. I'm sure we may take a break in about an hour, and then we'll be happy to chat with the press. Again, I'll thank the both chambers, the Senate and the House, for their transparency this year with the budget process, as we're doing the people's business and trying to come up with the best budget that funds the needs of Oklahomans and protects our taxpayers at the same time. And my priorities, just to reiterate them, are to make sure we kind of keep in mind what our income is. I think most Oklahomans understand what their income or the revenue is. We need to make sure that we don't obligate the state above what our ongoing obligations and ongoing income is. Let's keep our ongoing obligations around what our income is. And the next priority that I think is important, inflation is hurting Oklahomans. And there was a little confusion last week when we met on Monday around the tax cut proposal that I had. I would love to do a quarter-of-a-point tax cut. That'd be great. But my proposal is really, let's just help the poorest Oklahomans. And so if we get rid of the lowest bands, in other words, take all the bands up to the 27.1, we flatten out the brackets, we leave the 4.75 at the top, so we don't touch the top bracket. That would help the lowest and the poorest Oklahomans deal with inflation. If we're going to spend $1.5 billion or whatever it is on strategic projects out of savings, it's only right that we would do another tax cut for Oklahomans. I think the cost of that would be about $300 million in revenue, and then we would have a path to zero. So in other words, the path to zero is when we have excess revenue next year, the year after, it's automatic. It would kick in a quarter-of-a-point tax cut to stay up with these other states. The last point that I'd like to make is our savings account. It would not be prudent to blow through savings, even if it was great things and one-time items. We have to keep a strategic savings account to make sure that we don't put our state in a bad situation, because revenue doesn't always go up in a straight line. We need a healthy savings account, which we have right now. So if we can keep that at around $5 billion, we can weather any kind of economic downturn. We'll slow the growth of government, and we'll make sure that we never have to cut core services like we found ourselves in before I got here in 2018. And I know that was a tough session on those that are around the table during that time period. With that, last time we started with the speakers, I'd like to kick it over to the Pro Tem and start with the Pro Tem. The Senate, I think, did a lot of work. You were talking about your subcommittees and how can we come together and figure out where we're at. So I'm excited about this meeting to figure out how close we are to the numbers. And the question that I have on process is, and after we find out where we're at today, did the Senate move or the House, where are we at today, if we could find that out? And then what is the process to move the gap? I don't think we're going to have total agreement on every single item today. So let's say the House is here and the Senate's here. How do we then bridge that gap? What would be the process that we could finish up and we could kind of bridge that gap? I think that's an important conversation to hammer out that process to figure out how we can bridge that gap with the Senate's transparency process and the House's process. But I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Pro Tem, to give us an update and opening comments, or let us know how the last couple of days have gone.
Yeah, thank you. I could think of no better way to spend my birthday than with you all around the table, talking about the budget. Thank you, Governor, for hosting us again. Thought it was a productive conversation on Monday. I had originally said that I thought it was premature to come in Monday because we hadn't had our subcommittees. We've had our subcommittees now. And so I think you will have seen us move, maybe not the right word, but affirm positions that the House already had on some of their things. And so I think you'll see quite a few areas of agreement. Obviously, there will still be some pretty big gulfs of disagreement that we can talk through today and figure out how to solve those issues. Had really good caucus discussions and discussions, some with some of the members of the minority party about just the process, and thanks for staying the course on the process. I think we really ought to have a very serious conversation about recurring revenue and what that looks like. As you are talking about tax proposals, and I know that's something that both of you brought up on Monday, you've been bringing up for a while. I think we have a serious conversation about revenue if we're serious about that, and or if the picture looks more like I think, what proposals do you have to cut ongoing expenses to be able to match whatever cut that is? So we'll entertain any of those type of ideas you have. I think also just Chairman Hall has been in his position for about a week now, so his training wheels are now off, and I will let him lead the line by line when we get to that portion of it, have some high level discussions that I want to have. But just want to tell the subcommittees, thank you from me publicly for your tenacity and work effort this week on the Senate side of actually carrying through on the process and staying pure to the process to this point. I do have concerns about recurring revenue recurring expenses exceeding revenue if we go down some of the courses that have been discussed. And so welcome that conversation and look forward to the dialogue today.
Let's get into it.
Mr. Speaker, you have anything, or are you ready to get into it?
Governor, once again, thanks for hosting. Mr. Pro Tem, happy birthday again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Some of the questions that have been posed today on revenue, recurring revenue, the House is fully prepared to talk about that. Our budget team's been very much engaged on that. We have, and so I'm interested in hearing if we've on the Senate's positions on their changes, and hopefully I hope they've been able to work through all the things that we've had on our sheets. So at that, we're ready to move forward.
Governor, if I may, one thing, Mr. Speaker, thank you for those comments. One of the positions that we reaffirmed in the Senate this week, again, is our commitment to trying to keep $1 billion in cash above and beyond rainy day, revenue stabilization and the like, to make sure we can weather any storm in the future. We have spent some one-time cash within our budget, but we have set a floor on that, or a ceiling, depending on the way you look at it, of $1 billion. I know in some of the comparison charts that have been produced outside of the Senate, it shows that billion as an expense line, which is a different accounting method that I would use. But a lot of times when the public sees $1 billion in that expense column, they think we're spending $1 billion more than our real position is. And I want to make sure that's abundantly clear, but I would also love to see what the other two principals and or their membership, however they decide, think about. Could we come to an agreement that we will have at least $1 billion in cash when we get done with this process?
Mr. Chairman, what's our total reserves in the state? Kevin?
Well, depending on which budget position that you take, back up last week, basically it would say from the House position of the proposed budget through the point of negotiations and concessions, not the original budget that we released in the portal, but from the compromised and negotiated position, there would be about 4.8 billion left over in savings. Going backwards to the date that we released the portal, there would be about 4.865 billion. I will make one other comment in regards to comments back earlier, talking about cut budgets. I will say that the first budget that we released in the portal actually was a negative 1.9% less than last year's appropriation from a House position. Having $1 billion+ left over from the Board of Equalization authorized certification for the legislature, the House is still carrying 1.2 plus 2.9. It looks like. I got to get my coding glasses on
Special glasses.
for the special paper, but yes, still over $1 billion we're showing in cash from the Board of Equalization certification. I do want to make one other comment about the certification, and then with the tax commission and meetings that we had, a lot of discussion was brought about how the numbers were derived. Senator Hall, I know, was in those meetings. Senator Thompson was, and Senator Thompson was very hard on one of the economists. Economist's exact words, I would use the word conservative, but he did not. He said this is a soft projected estimate for FY25. We do have the revenue that has come in. We track that every month based on FY24. We're coming in ahead of the estimate as well. So when you look at the savings numbers, when we close the book for FY24, we will have a surplus again. One other thing I want to point out. Ever since COVID, we have never appropriated our full authority. There has been caution, prudence, conservative, whatever adjective that we want to use, but real constraint by the legislature not to overspend. And so I don't think you're going to see that problem this session again. FY24 budget that all the agencies are operating on right now, we only appropriated 90.75% of the authority. I don't have a final tally for FY25s because we don't have an agreement and concession, but I think it's going to be a number very similar to last year's budget. So if we're looking for a cut, I will just tell you that the House is prepared for the budget that we put in the portal from day one, which was a negative 1.9% less than FY24.
I appreciate that. I think that we can all go back and forth, and I don't mean for it to be, but FBA, those type of things were left out of that one that was originally on your portal. However, what I'm talking about is $1 billion in unobligated cash above and beyond the savings. We're in a position where we can spend some money strategically on one-time investments, and I think both of our sides have advanced proposals to do just that. What we set out at the start was to make sure that we had at least $1 billion, because during that COVID time, we had to spend about $400 million in cash just to make things cash flow. And we wanted to have things above and beyond that. You brought up your revenue sheet. I do have some particular questions on that. I don't know if we want to go, I'm good to go through revenue and ask you some questions on that, or we can talk about the budget line items. But the sheet that you handed out on Monday actually showed that your recurring expenses exceeded your revenue by $120 million. And I was trying to make that work in my mind. So I'll point you to, I guess we're going there. So I'll go there now. This sheet, let me find your sheet. Where is your revenue sheet?
Looks like this.
Yeah, no, here it is.
Yeah.
So am I reading this wrong? Because your recurring spend was 11.068 billion, and your recurring revenue was 10.947 billion. When I was looking at this quickly at a glance in the meeting on Monday, I'm used to seeing negative numbers either bracketed or in red, so I didn't catch that the 120 that you show the difference from is actually the 120 negative revenue to recurring expenses. Am I reading your document correctly?
Right. If you look at the bottom half, that is the numbers from the FY23 session, which would be the FY24 budget. Top half would be for this session and the budget that we had proposed on the House numbers. So for comparison, last year in investments and recurring spend, it was 144 mil more than recurring revenue. But if you look at the same time, what the revenue did go up, it's about a 2% increase in recurring revenue. Also on the budget that we have, but keep in mind, I'm willing to go back and cut the number down to negative 1.9% spend from last year. So we would actually have a savings of about 4%. But this was a snapshot of where we were at with the House budget that I believe the two chambers had negotiated to come to. Let's just say that your resolution was 10 and our portal number was 0. We negotiated a 4 and 6. Where we were at the 4 number on the House side, that was a snapshot. I will say, and I requested at the end of the last meeting, and I had confirmation that Anthony would send John the Senate numbers. I don't believe that's happened yet still today. So I'm not positive where you guys are at, but
Did you send
the
those?
Senate.
Yeah.
They will send them. We sent
I
them.
have not received an email from Anthony Stevens since April 17th. I think there are questions for.
I can't hear.
That is so technical. The Senate sent you numbers.
I haven't seen these numbers.
You haven't got an email from Will?
I have not received an
Mariah received it.
Mariah received
You
it.
haven't received an email from who?
email from Anthony Moore.
But what I would say is where I believe the Senate, where I believe we were at with your Senate numbers here a few weeks ago. I believe the Senate number had a higher spend than the House budget. But I agree with you. If we want to have a lower spend, we can get there.
The governor's always had the charge, and I've always agreed to it publicly and privately as well, that we don't want our recurring spend to be higher than our recurring revenue. So when I was going back through and reviewing your documents, I don't know what I did with my version of it. But the 120 caused me some pause. So it is 120 upside down in what you had on Monday. Not what you originally proposed, but where your Monday numbers are.
Snapshot from where the negotiated positions between the two chambers, I believe this is a snapshot. Yes, sir.
Well, I
State
think
that the reoccurring revenue had increased 2% over last year. And this is based on the BOE numbers, so we are talking about projections, just to be clear. And then based on the spend is off the sheet, that is a certain number.
okay. I understand their estimates, but we've lived well under those estimates. I do appreciate and applaud what you said and the work that you and Chairman Thompson and Vice Chairman Hall and now Chairman Hall have done over the past few years. We've been very conservative on that, but I was just wanting to make sure that I was reading that properly. If I could have a follow-up to that, just so I can more fully understand your position. These sheets that you handed out, I got my decoder glasses on. It said drink more Ovaltine is what it said under the thing. But because I think the revenue deal has to have a better, if we're going to talk taxes, which obviously you and the governor want to do, we've talked grocery tax, and we came into agreement and gave the largest tax cut in state history that gave the most benefit to most people. But we're going to talk revenue. I have a question on that sheet. When I got my decoder glasses out, it shows a $79 million positive on your tax cut. So on both sheets. So if you look at the top of the decoder one,
Yeah.
can you explain to me why there would be a positive?
But I want to make one other point so everybody's on the same page. This recurring revenue number is
Yes, sir.
based on the estimates. It's also based on 95% of the estimate.
Correct.
So I just want to make sure everybody knows that the appropriating authority for the legislature is always 95% of the projected. That's the number we're using. And as we've mentioned, the legislature has done a mighty fine job since COVID of always appropriating less than that 95% authority.
Absolutely.
So there's a built-in cushion, and the number that we're using for reoccurring is the 95% number. And I just stated, we know for FY24, we're going to come in above the estimate. There's going to be another big cash reserve left in FY24 general revenue. It gets into semantics, but I think you'll remember one other conversation, big meeting about this time last year, talking about
We meet a lot around this time of year.
reoccurring, right?
Yeah.
And I did make a point, and I want to get this on the record again. When BOE misses the projection time and time again by $1 billion, we do have to have that conversation and agree that that is reoccurring, even though it's not here on revenue. All of a sudden, it's classified over here in cash savings. Is that agreeable?
I understand what you're saying. I think that you would also agree that Board of Equalization took a different tack when they were estimating FY25 than they have in the past. They've normally taken the lesser of the two numbers, and this time they took an average of those two. So I don't think you can rest on those laurels on this one. But can you explain to me though how a tax cut shows a $79 million, well, I'm sorry, $78.5 million positive? I'm looking specifically, I don't know which page you're on.
The revenue, page 1.
Well, I don't know how y'all format yours. So it references some House Bill 2950. It references the House Bill 2950, and it shows a full year is 157 million. And then it shows a flat rate conversion, which I think maybe what the governor may have been referring to, I'm not positive, of 295 for full year. And you have booked 145.7 negative on that flat rate, which would be half of that. That I understand that part, although I don't understand the estimate, but I do understand that part. But why are you showing a 78.5 positive on the cut part?
So on the trigger, based on the tax commission, we sent a bill over that was not supposed to implement a 0.25% cut until we had 400 million growth in revenue.
Yes, sir.
They put an impact on it, so therefore the tax commission does believe we're going to have a $400 million growth in revenue for this next coming year. That would, trigger the 0.25% cut. On the line items and we sent many different tax proposals to the Senate, but on the sheet for revenue, which I believe you had one of these as well, the full
I've got
position.
this and the decoder one.
So right there,
This one, okay.
it should have the bills listed out for you. So the income tax cut, full year, same number that you mentioned there.
Sir, I guess Mr. Chairman, what I'm trying to get at is when I'm doing budgeting, I always see brackets or parentheses around a negative number. You're showing a positive number on
So
that.
there's two numbers there. So there's the
There's a
147.
larger negative.
Yes.
There's a larger negative number than the positive. So it is a net loss. It is a negative number.
The positive number comes in because the tax cut's only triggered by revenue growth. So that positive number is the revenue growth. The negative number is from the tax cut itself. That's why there's two.
But the actual estimate, if you're basing it off the estimate, showed $809 million for a full implementation cut, and then it showed the 304 once you apportioned. So I'm not seeing where those jive. So if you look at the reason I'm asking this, I'm not trying to be cute. I'm asking because if we're talking about recurring revenue and you're already on that position, again, snapshot in time based on 95% number, I give you that. I respect that. So you're already showing $120 million down on a recurring there. But it looks like that number has baked into it a either deflated or positive number on your income tax. So that's what I'm trying to.
Can I read the loft analysis? This is from loft.
Okay.
Zach Penrod at loft. This is it. Oh, Zach's the house. Yeah. But the loft analysis, $295 million reduced income tax collections. That's annualized. So you can see that there. And then you can also see that positive impact is from the trigger. If you pull up the fiscal impact statement, net positive fiscal impact of 157 million. So that's again why you see two line items there, the 157 positive and 295 negative.
So, but I'm looking at the fiscal impact statement that's on our shared website, the LSB, and it shows a full FY26. I know we're dealing with FY25, but FY26 of 809.9 million, and then it shows for FY25 the one we're currently negotiating, $321.8 million reduction.
I don't believe that's the most recent. If you look at the floor, if you look at the most recent fiscal impact on April 11th on the floor amendment, you can see the latest analysis from Loft.
And
Oh, so we're basing it on loft, not on tax commission.
No, but that's what's listed on our joint website on the fiscal analysis.
And obviously that
In the most recent.
impact right there is not giving the value of the $400 million growth in revenue to trigger that cut.
Okay.
So
The
the
most
4%
the most
cut
recent
doesn't
analysis
happen
is
unless
the
we
loft
have growth.
analysis.
So your $120 million recurring to expenditure deficit that we talked about earlier, that has baked into it some kind of growth model from the bill. Are these two sheets related?
They're related, but that impact I don't believe is a complete impact so it's flattening all the brackets, do away with all the brackets on the bottom of our income tax rate. So for a joint filer, you do not pay income tax until your income is over $27,100. So that is the cost. Then for the quarter percent cut, that doesn't get enacted unless we have a growth revenue of 400 million. So we have 400 million growth revenue. That is a positive.
I
Do you
understand.
agree?
Yes, sir.
Then the cut for a quarter percent income tax off the top only rate that we would have if this bill is enacted, that's the other negative.
So what's the full implemented amount? Is it that 809.9?
That's not an accurate number because they're not giving on that impact right there credit for the growth. And that is for 26. We're working on 25, which would be half of the fiscal year.
Yeah, that would be the 321 number. So it's not even fully half, I guess.
Right.
But-
So that's to flatten the brackets. Now, the quarter percent cut comes, that is because we had growth revenue of over 400.
So it's a $321 million impact of just flattening the bracket for a partial year,
Full year.
for a full year. So the latest one I saw was on I thought that was the latest one we pulled, the engrossed version of it. We're not using tax commission numbers, we're using loft.
I don't have their impact.
Okay, well, we can get back to that. I just think if we have a more full conversation, I wanted to share some pause that when I was going through and reviewing your numbers. We did send you our numbers, so I apologize if it didn't get to you, but it was sent to your staff. We're not gonna get legalistic and say, hey, it went to this staff person, not that staff person. We sent it to the House. And so if you don't have that, we'd be happy to project it up here so you can see it. We're not hiding anything. Everything's in the public view. Everyone in the public has
Just a
our
real
numbers.
quick, simple question. Is your today position from the Senate back to where we had negotiated from, or are you back to?
We're to what the subcommittees have finalized, and I think Chairman Hall I think you'll probably be pleased with the progress that we've come closer to where you all were on many items. So we can run down where the agreements are, where the disagreements are, where we believe the agreements are. I'm happy to transition to that if y'all want to put a pin in the revenue conversation for a little while, but we do have a lot of progress that the subcommittees have made, and I think largely to the position that I think you all were on Monday, I think. But Chairman Hall has all those.
Before we move on, Mr. Pro Tem, are you clear in the difference between our sheets and you're looking at a fiscal impact that doesn't consider both sides of the analysis?
I'm a little, to borrow my daughter's word, confuzzled, because I've always had to base everything on the budgeting on what the tax commission tells us, and not what my staff says, and I love Loft, that you and I, that's a legacy that you and I both share and appreciate the work put into it. But I'm nervous about changing off the long held precedent that we use tax commission numbers to base a budget on, but we can come. So I'm not clear on it. I'm pretty confused on it.
Basically, the tax commission is only looking at, they're assuming that the quarter cut happens, but they're not netting against the revenue that would have to exist before the cut would ever trigger. That's the difference.
Well, I understand what you're saying, that the reading of this, and maybe we'll have to pull tax in here, but if we start having that conversation, because the governor enunciated the flattening, which I think Governor, are you talking about House Bill 2950 when you say that?
I don't know exactly what bill it is, but yeah, the flattening, the quarter of a point, we're kind of taking that off the table. The path to zero would only be if revenue grows. I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but just flattening those rates really helps the poorest of Oklahomans. You remove any tax that's anybody filing jointly under 27,100 would pay, any taxes whatsoever. So, and that would be good for all Oklahomans. The quarter of a point, I think, is a moot point because it wouldn't take into effect until we had revenue growth. So I don't know exactly what we're talking about here. On the $1 billion, I'm so excited we're talking about the savings of $1 billion in cash. And I think, if I'm saying it correctly, and Secretary Laws can help me, but if we have $5 billion in savings, we know that only around 1.8 or 2 billion in the rainy day fund, and in essence, the rest of that is cash. So I think we're going to have an excess. I think both chambers are in agreement. We're going to have a lot more than $1 billion in cash.
I want to be clear when I'm talking about traditional savings. So revenue stabilization fund, I would not count into that because you have to have certain parameters to meet that. I wouldn't count rainy day in there, and I wouldn't count the FMAP savings account because those all have three really clearly stated purposes. So I'm talking about $1 billion and beyond, above and beyond those numbers.
We could look at the math. I still think we do, but revenue stabilization is still a savings account that a previous legislature set up to, take out the ups and downs of the oil and gas industry. So that's truly cash. And I think a couple of years ago, legislature changed some rules to not have to make a payment into that. So the legislature could still get to that if they needed to.
We could,
so
but I think our goals are aligned actually, because you've thrown out, I think, 5 billion or so roughly in there. So I don't think we're far off on the goals. I just want to clearly state that the Senate position is that we want to see when all the spending is done recurring and one time, that we have still $1 billion in unencumbered cash that is not part of FMAP revenue or rainy day, which I don't think we're saying different things, to be honest.
I don't either.
Well, on this particular sheet that you had
Yes, sir.
or beginning this week, it shows remaining for FY 25 authority, $1,154,000,000 for round numbers, yada, yada, yada. And that's from the House position. I'm not stating your position, but from where I believe that we had got to just a few weeks ago.
4 and the 6 position.
Yes.
I don't disagree with you. Any conversation we have impacts that. As we start looking at cash to pay for projects or LCF, the mixture of those, I think that all impacts that bottom line because
It does, but this is from the House sheet, which
Oh,
had the tax cut in it. And still with one.
But the tax cut, the loft analysis, not the tax commission analysis. Correct.
So it really,
Right here.
I mean, on that, whether it's loft or OTC, I mean, at the end of the day, the math is the math. The trigger doesn't kick in unless we have certain revenue.
No, I fully understand that.
And I mean, that was part of SB 1 when we created loft, was that we would have some independent fact checking under the legislature and not just relying on the.
We have not seen that loft report, so if you could.
Yeah, it's online since April 11th.
If you could send it to us, just like our numbers are online as well, and you can send it to any one of us at the table, we'll all accept it. But greg.treat@oksenate.gov, I'll take a look at it. I'll also look up online.
Well, yeah. I'm very optimistic and excited y'all are talking about tax cuts now. This is great.
Well, I
let
want to be clear. Our position has not changed on that. We just want to fully vet the proposals you all are talking about.
And we can get together, I think, on low revenues. We've got some talking to do maybe, but our team, Pro Tem, watched the Senate subcommittee and saw that there were some votes, and we're very pleased, and it looks like you guys we're moving closer together. But on the things you haven't, one example is like the psychiatric residency program. Senate is like at 3.4 million, House is at 2 million. It doesn't really matter the numbers. I think they used to be together, and then after the vote, now they're separate. So my question is more on the process. How do we solve that divide now? What is the process to bring us together? I mean, are we able to? Do we need to sit down and talk about that? These specific items that we have differences, or do you have to go back to your subcommittee to vote? What's the process to kind of bring us together now if the House is saying one thing and the Senate saying the other.
I think the change you reference is from a closed door meeting that we said was not part of our process versus a subcommittee meeting. So it's not really a change. This is our articulated position. As far as landing the plane and getting to an agreement, yeah, we have to have some negotiating latitude for those of us at this table, and our chamber has definitely understands that and reaffirmed that as late as yesterday and today. So we're here to negotiate. We're here to hear the differences, and obviously we want to keep the public informed and our caucus and the minority party in our chamber informed the whole way through the process.
So we have some negotiation here today. You don't have to take that back, or as it was stated, I was told that it's got to go back in front of the committee before it can be in front of the joint JCAB.
We have a great deal of latitude, but we also respect our membership, and so it will depend on how wide swings are today, what decision I make as far as going to that. But we'll be abundantly clear what our position is on the differences, if there are any.
Apparently there are some, or we wouldn't be sitting at the table.
I know. Let's go.
One thing else I do want to point out, if I'd had the latitude, Governor, and I do want clarity, and I'm not being facetious, but I do want to point out, just so everybody does know, in Senate Journal, back February of 23, the process that we do have in joint rules between the legislature, House and Senate, very clear, especially joint committees and JCAB. Basically, neither chamber can impose a change on these processes without a resolution, 2/3 vote in both chambers. We've done that before. We have not done that this session. I just want to point that out, and I would like to be clear. You can have some processes, but we do have, not suggestions, but constitutional binding joint rules. We do agree to that, correct?
So the joint rules, I've heard members of your caucus came and said, hey, you all can't take stuff back to a subcommittee. So I knew you all were talking about that, but we'll abide by the joint rules, but nothing says we can't have conversations in the public about those, and can't get input from our caucus. I would hope you would get input from your chamber as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. But a new process is saying, okay, if we have a JCAB bill, the Senate's going to bring it back to a subcommittee, have a vote on JCAB bill there before it goes to the Senate JCAB, or was I confused about what maybe one of your subcommittee chairs stated?
A misunderstanding of the process.
Obviously. Let's get on it.
Yeah. Chairman Hall, I'll let you lead from the Senate side.
Great, sounds good. So do we want to talk, you want to talk about the item that you were talking about earlier, Governor, on the,
That was just one item from our team. We watched and just saw a difference, and no, that wasn't nothing particular. It was just, if we have a difference, if you're at 100 and the House is at 200, how do y'all bridge that gap?
so we can certainly talk about these items that maybe we might not have agreement on. I think the pro tem laid out that if you've been watching our public subcommittee meetings, that we've had a lot of movement. When you look at these subcommittee spends, we're a lot closer than I think maybe everybody. We're a lot closer, and I'm pleased to talk about these line items of where we're not in agreement as a result of our subcommittee meetings and the reports that we received in full appropriations yesterday. When you look at the Department of Education. We're in alignment, in several areas. One place that we're not in alignment on are the paid student teaching. The one time for the paid student teaching, the Senate's position is at $2,600,000 by ESSER funds for a period of time. Now those ESSER funds have run out, and I think it's the position of our subcommittee chair that a continuation of that paid student teaching program is warranted.
I will say that as we had an agreement by the subcommittee chairs in the negotiations that have been pulled back and then renegotiated back in the Senate, there was an agreement on the education except for 3 items prior to last this past Monday. So we can rehash, but if we're gonna do that, let me be clear. The House is prepared to go back to the portal budget that we introduced, which is a negative 1.9 reduction in FY 25 expenditures from 24. If I can get your numbers and I'll line them up, and I do have a sheet, much like the one I brought or it feels like last week, much like the sheet I brought Monday, showing what I thought the differences were. I do have a sheet here that will show the differences between your resolution and our opening day portal.
We can certainly discuss your opening day portal. I have your opening day portal on 416 numbers in front of me. I don't need that. I
All
have,
right, let's go there.
I have a line item here, but we can stick with the paid student teaching. One time now, you weren't recognizing that as a portal expense, isn't it, as an expense in your 416? And I'm curious that, where the house is at on the paid student teaching.
Are we stipulating then, before we start talk about the expenses, that we're in agreement on the revenue and that the House is starting from that includes the tax cut?
No, that's,
Well, then, so we just want to talk about spending and not the,
we'll talk about revenue and how yours doesn't balance right now. We'll be more than happy to have that conversation.
yeah, it balances, but anyway.
Or
We know what's the starting? Are you guys starting at SJR
We're starting, we have
Or
our SR 31.
31?
And then our subcommittees have met and matched up with what was on your House portal. We worked from your House portal as of May 6th.
And then negotiated compromise.
I'm sorry?
numbers, From negotiated and compromised numbers.
Well, so if I could ask Chairman Hall.
Sure.
So what changes is made to this? So from the difference from the April 29th meeting, where our two sub-chairs, Chairman McBride and Chairman Pugh, negotiated positions with you and I in the room, Chairman Thompson, Chairman Wallace, those agreements that were made with our two sub-chairs for education in the room negotiating, what agreements that they made then are different from the position today? Because that day, the education sub-chairs agreed to not fund the paid student teaching, but now they are. Are there any other items that are different from the April 29th agreement from the sub-chairs?
Yes, I believe there are.
Okay.
And we could talk about those. I'm prepared to talk about every one of those that could potentially be a change, from that.
Yeah.
So I'm prepared to do that. Like I said, when the pro tem appointed me to this position, I went back to SR 31 and began to look at it. Worked with our subcommittee chairs to bring the differences to light. The subcommittee chairs have worked very hard over the past week to reconcile using your most recent portal. Mr. Chairman, if you want to go back and match that up to 416, please, Mr. Chairman, we have the 416.
All right, well, that would be the House starting position, so there's a lot more to negotiate. Would you not agree?
So if we want to go back to your 416 position, and compare that to where we're at today with our subcommittee work, pleased to do that.
Well, anytime, and so let's be clear. Your resolution and whatever number you would like to have, would that be just starting position 0 or 10? Your resolution, what number do you have?
SR 31.
SR 31, let's just say that's starting ground 0. The House come out with our portal and our budget numbers, let's just call that 10. So everybody knows where we started. We negotiated. You guys went from 0 to 4. The House come from 10 to 6. We had an agreement except for the gap in the middle. Now then, you come in, you back up. You guys want to go back to 0. You want to use our number from a negotiated position, say, okay, let's start negotiation. Let's go here. So now you're asking the House to negotiate from literally 10 to probably about 3. And you retracted. And just be honest, reneged on negotiations. Your sub-chairs were in there. That's fine. Let's start back with your number, but you can't take my negotiated compromise position.
We'll go to your 416. We're fine with that.
Let's start there.
We're still back to where we started at the paid student teaching. When?
No, we're still back to before spring break is where we're at.
But the House's position on 416.
We're up to where we were yesterday and subcommittee's getting approval. So we'll go back to your 416 numbers. We can't dictate what your
Do
numbers are.
we have Senate May 8th position?
Yeah, so this is their original, this is our original.
No, as of what they have on their.
I don't know what. they have
The
on
SR
sheet
31
today.
came
We
out on.
can't see the difference.
We
on
have-
March
we
14th.
have-
We'll be happy to project it up on the screen if you'd like to have it. I don't know if we have copies, but if we could be allowed to throw our documents up on the screen, we'd be happy to do that.
Yeah.
Because we don't have it scanned.
What's that?
You want to stack copies?
Everybody's got it like that.
Yeah, we got it, Jeff. Is this what you're looking at too? Okay.
You enlarge it a bit. Are you running anything?
No, sir. Keep the staffer down there.
Who's running it?
As much as you can.
I think there's been a request oh, there you go. You heard it.
Pro Tim's older today, makes no mistake.
So, Mr. Chairman, working back from SR 31 on its original, which you can find there in its original form, which you can find there on the left column, you can see what the Senate's position was with their resolution compared to the House portal plan that was posted on 416. And if those are the numbers you want to work from, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
But to be clear, we are operating off of that second, Senate Resolution 31 those are numbers as of yesterday. But we'll be more than happy to let you go back to your position of the far right column at 416.
What time did the email come out, go to the House that you guys sent?
We'll read that for you. We also sent a copy to the.
I received it at
1:25. What time? 1:25. You sent it to us at 1:25
Yeah.
for a 2 o'clock meeting?
Yeah, but I want to.
Can we,
I
hold
also.
on. Governor, can we pause and make sure our staff has got it?
Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break and we'll get all that stuff.
Thank you.
Speaker-elect sent me a deal. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I did see it. Appreciate it.
Okay, this is progress. We now have kind of the positions of where the House is, the 416. I think everybody's got printed copies, and then the SR 31 plus is the Senate positions. I'll turn it over to you, Wallace.
Couple things for the sake of transparency. I would like to have the Senate show the agency's request on the screen as well. Can you guys put that up real quick? Another column there.
We can't do that right now. I mean,
I understand. One other thing.
it's this position of the House and Senate that matter according to the Constitution. So, I mean, we take those into account. We appreciate it. I actually like that you have that column on your deal. I think it'd be a good improvement, but we don't have that on this current sheet.
All right. One other thing I want to make a real quick point. So going back to the budget that we introduced on the portal, that spend was only 91% of our authority as well. So I think we're in a very strong position, still with a tax cut, not appropriating full authority. We can continue to move on through, but I do think that we should probably take a look at agency's requests along with the Senate and House requests, and there are definitely Senate requests and House requests throughout the budget process.
All right, starting at the top again. Chairman Hall, show is yours.
Okay, well, we're right back to, for the Department of Education, if that works for you, Mr. Chairman. Comparing the House's 416 plan to the SR 31, where we're out of agreement currently, we're back to paid student teaching. Mr. Chairman, I think right before the break, you indicated that that it was not an agency request.
That's correct.
I'm reflecting that it is.
I'm showing on the line item from before, it is a Senate request. Paid student teaching.
Maybe we can get somebody
Item.
to verify that.
Well, that's why I was asking if the Senate can pull up the agency's request and we can see the line items that the agency did request.
You show it as not requested on our sheet or requested.
So agency requests are at the top, and then as you get past the agency request, items are listed S or H.
So
These are Senate
two
requests.
questions on that. John pointed out to me, it may be bundled in the activities request. And my second question is, you guys have it listed as a one-time. I mean, we need to, the whole reason we're having this conversation is because this was funded with one-time funds from ESSER. Now they're wanting state funds for it. So are we talking about doing this one time, or is this a recurring? Is this truly a one-time? I mean, when we've
Yeah, so
a couple of years.
Well, so I don't believe it to be truly a one-time. I do think that because of the allocations that we were working on very early on as we were building SR 31, Senator Pugh was working with a specific allocation, and his intent was to honor at least the way I'm seeing the agency request to at least keep it going this year after the ESSER funds ran out.
Okay, so the one-time designation was because his allocation that he was given.
That's correct.
So is it still the Senate position to do it one time then, or is it a recurring ask?
Yeah, I believe that we'll stick with the work of our subcommittee, which is still referenced as paid student teaching as a one-time line, or a one-time position in the.
And so it's on the record, the Senate wants to pull that out of FY26's budget if we agree to it today for 25.
Well, I mean, it's we'll need to use cash for it.
Student teaching.
Is it your position that you want to use it as recurring?
It's my position that if we did agree to it, we'll be having the same conversation about trying to back it out next year based on negotiations, which every budget is a one-time budget.
I've heard you say that before.
It is.
But if it's the position of the Senate that you want to fund it for FY25 as a one-time and you do not want to fund it in FY26 moving forward, then we're all saying this here publicly, and so the public would understand that it's not going to be funded after FY25. At least that's the intent.
Yeah, well, I do think it's I think the education chair would tell you that, that he believes that it should be an ongoing expense. And we can certainly talk about, we can certainly talk about that, if you like. But what I'm attempting to do here today, based on the allocation of funds that he was given, is to honor the subcommittee's, attempt to honor the subcommittee's request and their work.
Okay, so I know I keep going back on process, but the allocation of funds has been referenced a couple times. I mean, what process was that determined? Because that kind of seems arbitrary if he was just given a bucket and said, keep a certain amount one time, certain amount recurring.
Yeah, well, initially my predecessor, working with Pro Tem, sat down with the eye on keeping the cash, the $1 billion worth of funds based on the BOE estimate. We worked on allocations both for cash and one-time spending. We worked on that internally, trying to be responsible with taxpayer dollars, and the subcommittee chairs initially built SR 31 off of those allocations. We also, built in, a need for whatever legislation would pop up that would require funding that at the time we weren't, aware what would make it through the process or what wouldn't make it through the process. And then, we also held back dollars for waiting to see, what the House's requests were, and what things that our subcommittees were willing to look at that came from House Representatives.
So this OT on your sheet means one time, that's how
Yes,
you have it?
and the R means recurring.
Okay, so in this one that we're talking about is one time, is your record, is what you're asking?
So we are confirming, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Speaker, that this was an agency request, that of the $2,650,000, along with their explanation of why that those were ESSER funds that have now run out. They'd like to continue the program. Be fine.
I'm fine moving it to recurring. I mean, just so there's no confusion like there is on the off the formula teachers, because we felt like that was a recurring agreement we had last year at 16.1, to make sure there's no issues next year when y'all are sitting around this table. Obviously, paid student teachers is a very important position the Senate has taken. If we can afford to do it recurring, we can put an R in that column, if that's the desire.
I was just trying to figure out the Senate's position. This is all I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, we're fully empowered to negotiate with you all, and we can put an R there.
So are we ready to decide what our revenue is going to be and what we have to work with so we can get down to the final numbers on the budget?
Well, I mean, we're at 314, if that clock is right. We haven't gone off line item 1 of the budget differences, so again.
Revenue is a budget difference, right?
Well, we can talk about revenue. I mean, we can talk about revenue all you want, as long as we keep that billion. I got an email, thank you. That's a diversion from our normal course of practice of basing budgets on tax commission. Loft is an extremely important tool, but one of the things we did when we created SB1 was to say it shouldn't duplicate the efforts of any agency or the House or Senate. And so I have not seen that until today. I'll review it in my leisure on it. Appreciate you providing it. I guess if we can't get agreement for paid student teachers, let's move to the next line item. That's still a question mark. We'll move to recurring though, if that's, I do share a concern that paid student teachers is obviously an ongoing desire. Obviously next year, if you all see that it's not been money well spent, I won't be here to make that decision. Y'all can cut it off next year if you want to. I'm completely fine to move into R though.
2.6 million.
2,650,000, yes.
Is that an agreement on that line?
I believe I heard him say we'll agree.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
We'll agree.
Thank you. Okay, item 2, let's go.
All right, the psychologist, speech pathologist, and audiologist bonuses. We reflect that, and the reason I believe that it's on our sheet is that it's found in state law, statute 70. And it seems like something that if we have a law to have it out there, that it ought to be funded. I think that's where the subcommittee's position is.
What was the agency request on that?
950,000 is what I'm reflecting.
I'm sorry.
I'm showing a number
Does the
of
executive have any comment on the
4.5.
Is there some in the base?
Do what?
That's in the activity. They asked for money. We don't.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
How's that? I think there's some in the base.
Maybe some of the base, but the full ask for the agency was 950 to cover the cost for some 867 FTEs.
Speaker, you asked me if I had a comment on the 2.6. I'm sure the 2.6, I guess, is for student teaching. Is that right? That
Paid student teaching.
Paid student.
pay student teach. We don't pay student teachers today.
There was some ESSER funds used for it temporarily, and we'd like to continue that.
So a student teacher is currently at the University of Oklahoma or East Central or Oklahoma State. And they're student teaching for a semester. Is that correct? And we want to start paying them.
To encourage more teachers to get in the classroom.
Okay, that's right. But they're encouraged because they're going to graduate, and that's their job, and it's kind of like an internship. It's a great thing. I love it. It's awesome. But if we go line by line, these are all great things. There's a million great things to do, and everybody's always telling us, hey, let's fund this. Look how much great government can do. If we don't start with the revenue and how much we have to spend, if we don't start with, this is how we just blow up the budget. This is what the federal government does just by spending and making people feel bad because they don't fund this or this or this or this. So again, these are tough conversations I know you guys are having. And if we can afford to do the student teaching, let's do it. But we also have to keep in mind what our revenue is. And I'm glad you're bringing that up, Pro Tem, because we got to get in, we got to talk about how much revenue we have to spend. We shouldn't just keep growing government. And remember, we put 700 million into teaching, into education last year. And so now we're here talking about doing another, that 700 million's in the base. They're going to get it this year. And now we're talking about doing another, whatever. Just comments. You guys are doing great. We're finally talking now on line items, which is really fun. And that's my comments.
So the psychologist, audiologist bonus, 950.
I showed the aggregate on that was a request for 4.5 million for all of them.
So you have the accounting of where the aggregate number comes from. So I think that what I'm seeing here is that we're off on the FTE expectation.
This is funding which is in the activities budget as well. Looks like to me it's like 675,000 for AP, 950 for bonuses, 3 mil for teacher induction.
Yeah.
Is the
Thank you, Mr.
2.5
Chairman.
high imagination library?
There might be, there's something right there on the end. I think it's cut off. Is that for
Yeah, it's cut
imagine
Yeah, it's
what?
imagination.
Well, is it Imagine Math and Imagine Reading or Imagine
It's
Library? Because those are,
based on the budget request,
Imagine
it's
library.
imagination library.
okay.
Imagine that.
Imagine that.
Imagine that.
It's the only-
And some of the stuff's in the activities budget, so that'd be Senate Bill 36 from the first special session, if anyone wants to look at it. What's in the base?
So much is in the base.
3.3? That's what Mariah said.
What is 3.3 in the base?
Huh?
There's 3.3 million. base
3.3 in the
already
base.
for
And
the
your
activity.
position now is still at zero, correct?
Yeah, that's where we're at.
0 additional.
Yeah. So again, my people are telling me that, it's HCS that the current base funding is not covering the need.
Have a lot of needs.
We do have a whole lot of needs.
What's the difference? We're putting 950 into something that already has how much?
3.3.
I haven't talked to you.
It's in the activities budget. It's different than the funding formula.
This is kind of
That's
similar.
always the
Part
next
of the
big,
budget limits side.
big fight is what's in the activities budget.
That's right. And that'll be discussions that were coming for sure.
But I have a similar question here to my previous question on one time, because the Senate note here is one time versus recurring. And if we gave this bonus with ESSER dollars in previous years, now we're giving the bonus again
3.3.
with state dollars. It kind of seems like a recurring bonus there. So that, I guess I have the same question. Are we doing?
I don't disagree with your analogy.
There's 3.3 in the base right now.
So we did last year.
Use it back in the base.
Yeah. Yeah. Get it back
Yeah,
to
we'll
that.
come to your position. Let's go. 2.
Right, so we'll come to your position. The final thing that it looks like that we're off on the Department of Education is the request by the education chair of a $2,500 stipend for support personnel.
If I can quote him verbatim, whenever I was in a budget meeting with him the last time, he did say this was nobody's request but his own, and I expressed that it was pretty poor policy. Because if we do this, then they'll never give support staff another raise or a bonus without coming to the legislature, and I did say no.
And
But I said,
I do remember you saying
can you
that.
finish the rest of what I said, Chairman Hall?
No, I do remember what
Can
you said.
Finish what I said after that?
Do remember what you said, and I'm here to advocate for what our subcommittee chairs, our subcommittee chair and our subcommittee suggested. It was not an agency request. We talked a lot, about starting this, in it being an issue, but there is precedent for us helping support personnel, as you'll remember. Back in 2019, when we did the $1,000 pay raise of $52 million, that in order to help the support personnel. So this legislature does have a history of recognizing the value and the importance of support personnel.
And the rest of what I said is we may be able to put more money in the formula if we get a tax cut. Do you recall that statement?
I remember that being your answer to many of these items that we'll be talking about over the next
I
few
just want to
days.
make sure we all remember the same.
Yeah, and that was 2018, and the issue.
FY19.
Yeah, I see. The issue is we put all this additional funds in the formula, and so school districts have the ability to do this already. And if we start mandating pay raises, then that's going to disincentivize local school districts to fund support staff raises, which we already gave them the money that they can do.
We can turn to the discussion.
So there was extra money in the extra monies appropriated last year above the teacher pay raise for higher education, for common education, correct?
Yes, and we fully funded the off the formula teachers in that as well, per our agreement, and also maternity leave.
But there, my question was specifically, because I think we're gonna disagree
I'm having trouble hearing.
in perpetuity, but
What?
I can't hear you. Could you speak up just a little bit?
I sure will.
One of my hearing aids broke this week.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And I'm older than three.
I think the House's position is because the roughly 700 million that was appropriated last year, we had flexible amounts in that appropriation that could be used for support staff, pay raises, bonuses, stipends, whatever they want, whatever the school district wanted to do at that particular district level. And it's in the base again. The House's position on that is it's still in there again this year in the base. So we question adding a $99 million add for that line item, but we could have further discussions on running money into the formula for various things. But that one's is a large enough item request on the Senate's part. I think we probably should pass over that one, come back to it, come back around with some of these other things we haven't got nailed down yet.
As long as I can put a pin in Chairman Wallace's conversation about starting to pay for something that we haven't heretofore paid for when we get to public safety and judiciary and talking about sheriffs and trying to set a minimum salary there. I want you to remember the words you just said here.
I think it's a false equivalency though. What we're saying is we have already funded support staff pay raises.
I understand this would be starting a brand new expenditure line item for sheriffs, just like we took over the pensions in the 80s from cities. So I know we'll get the chance. I just want to preview a fight that we're going to have there.
I know, but since we're talking about sheriffs though, I mean, we
I
have,
just want to make sure we're consistent.
we have multiple sheriffs on food stamps in the state of Oklahoma.
Yeah, we have support staff on food stamps as well.
It's still the House's position that we do support law enforcement and public safety.
We support law
I just
enforcement,
checked,
public
we'll
safety.
see when we get to that line item where the
Please.
Senate's at.
We support teachers as well, including those off the formula.
So do we.
16.1.
Didn't I suggest we just go ahead and pass over this one and move
We
on?
did, but just like I can't dictate your policy, you can't dictate mine, so we're just having a little fun.
We voted on joint rules.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy, we're happy to stay on it, but,
No, I just wanted to, Chairman Wallace and I have a long time history of going back and forth on this stuff.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, just to take us down to the regions for higher education. You'll see that we had come to your position on the casualty and insurance. We're in agreement there now of the 12.5. There's still a little bit of discrepancy as it relates to Langston University. There was a line item, if who's ever run a computer could scroll down so that everybody could see that. There you go. Thank you very much. You have a line item for base funding adjustment for 2,500. It seems to match up with our Langston University piece. Just curious.
I'll come to your position. I think we agreed to put that in.
Ag. Great.
Yep, you can take that
Good.
off.
which one was that?
2,500
It was
right here. There's
the
some
word.
House position. Scratch that. Yeah, I believe that puts us in unison.
Okay,
These two.
taking it out of the House column and moving the Senate's position.
Mr. Chairman, too, Anthony was reminding me back up in the Department of Education, and I don't want to conflate the fact that we were looking at 416. We had actually come to the position, we were together on the maternity revolving fund. Are we still there at the 2.5? That's reflected in your 5.6 portal number, and it matches up with ours.
2.5 should be going into the activities budget. And then there should be a $2.3 million supplement for 24. Do
Yes.
you guys have that?
Yeah, and we're in agreement with that.
Okay.
Okay, just want to make sure.
So the one-time item is the 2.3. Well, it's all recurring, but 2.3 supplement, 2.5 ongoing.
That's right.
So.
Okay,
we
thank
carry
you. Yeah.
All of our supplements on the back sheet.
Yeah, we agree with that supplement.
2.3.
Okay, so we've talked about, we've talked about lengths. We're in agreement with the regions of higher ed.
All right, that was a good one.
Governor, how do you think we're doing?
This is amazing. You guys are doing great.
Amazing.
All right, so we can move to the Department of Career Tech.
Yeah, there is some other stuff on higher ed on the back sheet. Do you want to finish that up?
We can go to the back sheet, or we can talk about, we can continue to work down through the through the agency asks, or the agency numbers go back.
All right, let's do the
We
next.
still have some stuff that would be within the higher ed realm.
What are we talking about?
Yeah, what are you talking about? What are you referring to?
Deferred maintenance, are you talking about deferred maintenance?
Well, deferred maintenance and then LCF. So definitely in the higher ed.
Yeah, so we can talk about the deferred maintenance bill. I know that Chairman McBride was here a little earlier. You and I are working on that deferred maintenance bill now. That bill is headed to conference committee. You were kind enough, I appreciate it, to work up a first round of potentially agreed to language that I'm still evaluating, of course. So we have a little difference in my memory of the deferred maintenance amount that the Senate set out at 500 million versus I believe you're 350 million,
335.
335.
But discussion on a fourth bucket for the legacy piece that is important to the Senate.
Yes, and so it is, and I think those are discussions that you and I can certainly have related to to our work moving the bill out of conference. I'm willing to work on that. I want to work on that. You and I have had offline conversations related to that, and I think that we're close. I think the decisions that you and I need to make are related to how we allocate those dollars. Based on percentages. I think there's a focus, at least it's my belief, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's a focus to change the allocation as it relates to our research universities versus our 2s and 4s or the Russos. And I think there's some discussion to be had there about those pot allocations within the deferred maintenance.
I think also, just to put a finer point on some of it, I think some of the discussions around, do we fund projects that our subcommittee approved at OU and Roger State? Any money that, I know y'all have some booked on the OSU side, if we fund those, do we change the formula to make sure that those 2 years and those regional universities get a bigger percentage of whatever we put in there based on us putting a greater capital outlay through different, so I think those are all intertwined conversations.
And if I could point out, just floor leader, not the budget guy, but it looks like the difference between our number 335 for deferred maintenance, which higher ed needs, the Senate's number is 500. That's a difference of 165 million. The first year of flattening the tax rate, which gives a tax cut to the poorest Oklahomans, is 147 million. So that would be it right there, wouldn't it?
That's a cash expenditure, a one-time cash expenditure versus a recurring tax cut expense.
Okay.
That would go up in year 2.
So it would only fund the first year of the tax cut.
But
Right.
the tax cut, I assume you're not just trying to do a 1-year tax cut, you want it to be fully realized.
I mean, that we've sent over offers that include triggers. So, I mean, you absolutely could. No, that's not what I want.
But
To be clear,
spend
you could.
a
Yeah.
recurring expense on one time, I think would be a dangerous precedent.
If you have a trigger though, so for example, if you had a 2-year sunset, wouldn't be. Just throwing it out there. There's ways to do it if we want to. We talked about cuts earlier, just as somebody who's thinking, agencies are having a great day and taxpayers are getting hosed. Just throwing it out there. There are opportunities in here that.
Don't sell yourself short. You just gave them the largest tax cut they've ever received, and it'll go into effect last August. Don't sell yourself short.
I think it's awesome. I think if we flatten that tax rate, we give the poorest Oklahomans and all of Oklahoma they're who gets the tax cut. I think there was a misunderstanding because it was reported wrong several times that it was a 0.25% tax cut. So
But that's what was contained in the 2950 originally, and then in some of your proposals, you sent a litany of them. I don't disagree with that. We weren't really sure what your position was until we got these budget sheets.
The governor said it though, starting
But
on
this
flattening
morning,
rate.
Yeah.
No, he said it on Tuesday.
On Tuesday,
Yeah, he
he
said
was
it
talking
very
about a quarter point tax cut on.
No. On Tuesday, he very clearly said he was looking to flatten the rates.
You've been advocating for a quarter point for a long time.
That was not.
The good news, it's on you. The good news, it's on you.
You're not advocating for a quarter point.
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
And that's-
The flattening and then the path to zero. If you guys, if we want to do a quarter of a point, I've called three special sessions for tax cuts. And I've been prescriptive and I've been unprescriptive and but I think, to Leader Eccles' point, you know, we're talking about all these spending and all this thing we're doing, and we're not talking about slowing the growth of government. So if we've got enough money to spend $1.5 billion in savings, surely we have enough money for a $300 million flattening the tax rate for the poorest of Oklahomans. That's the only position. And I think we can look at the revenue, and I think with the 100% spend versus 95%, I do think we won't go over reoccurring revenue. But that's something that you guys can decide on.
But I think those are two pretty big substantial changes though, Governor, that you've always said recurring expenditures cannot outpace recurring expenditures. Or I may have flipped that, but recurring expenditures cannot outpace recurring revenue. The plan that you all have proposed between the House and yourself does just that, $120 million upside down before you ever contemplate the full level impact. And then the quarter point, I think, is a shift. That's a new point of information for me and my caucus to digest, that you no longer are pushing for the quarter point tax cut. That is new information to me today.
Yeah, okay, perfect. And just for clarification, we're talking about, as you know, we can only spend 95% of our income or our revenue. When you look at the 100% of the income, and I think that's a fair point, we're gonna have $500 million extra this year in fiscal year 24, and we'll have $500 million is what 5% is next year. We absolutely have
But that's a big
$300
decline.
million.
That's a big decline off what we have been experiencing. So the 500 million, 350 is a big decline on what we have been exceeding on the 5%. So we need to look at that. We've been reading the treasurer's reports. We've been reading economic analysis. I think we need to be very prudent in whatever decisions we make. We have not been spending, as some have accused, of drunken sailors. I mean, when you look at where we pulled the money back in for TRS, or we pulled the money back in for transportation, that can be used on a chart to show an escalating cost. That's $1 billion of that new revenue. I think that's something the House, and at least in the past, and us have been on the same page of that being misleading. And then in this budget, I want to make sure Oklahomans are clear that $600 million of the increase is based completely on us making healthcare authority money. Healthcare authority last year spend excess revenue from an enhanced federal match that we made them spend out last year. So when it can be very misleading on a chart, and I want to make sure, and especially if anyone tries to posit that the Senate position of saving $1 billion of cash above and beyond rainy day, FMAP, and revenue stabilization is somehow an expenditure. So I just want to make that abundantly clear in my presentation. Not trying to, I don't mind being combative at times, but that's not my intent here. I just want to clarify our statement on where the Senate stands.
Mr. Pro Tem and Governor, great dialogue, and I appreciate all points. I do want to bring something to the surface that I think is being missed in the conversation regarding the actions that we've already taken on the grocery tax this year, and then what we're contemplating, perhaps on a tax cut under the model of House Bill 2950, which is doing away with the lower brackets and leaving the top rate alone for now, and only lowering that top rate is only if state revenues increase. I think one of the things we don't need to lose sight on, and a lot of what you're both saying, I agree with, but we don't need to lose sight on, in terms of the grocery tax, it didn't help the poor in the state of Oklahoma. It didn't help them. They're not paying taxes on groceries to start with. The tax cut that we're talking about will help the poor in the state of Oklahoma. That will leave more money in their pocket. So, and the other thing I think that we don't acknowledge, because, and we always, all of these groups that score the cut in taxes, they score these things in a vacuum. They score them as if that money is gone and it's never coming back. And when you're talking about the personal income tax, that's not going to be the case. you're just letting people spend the money themselves rather than the government spend the money for them. They are going to spend that money, and it's going to throw off revenue to the state of Oklahoma that does come back to us. It gets replaced through their economic activities. And so, and we can look at the past round of cuts that we've made, and the state's revenues have continued to increase. We've never lost revenue because of those tax cuts. So I think I want to make sure that's not lost in the conversation, as we're having conversations about doing the best that we can as a state for the people of the state of Oklahoma, and all that they're being challenged on individually. And those in our state with the lowest incomes are the ones that are having the toughest problem dealing with inflation.
Well, Mr. Speaker.
And so I just want to make sure that those things don't get lost in conversation.
Mr. Speaker, if you regret eliminating the state portion of the grocery sales tax, that's something you can address.
That's not what I said.
But it is something that you and I have had a disagreement on for a long time. Because you brought up SNAP benefits that doesn't help the poorest in that area. I see to you SNAP, but the working poor, people who are living on the margins, absolutely are benefited by a grocery sales tax that your chamber and our chamber passed and the governor signed. I'm proud of the work that we did.
And that's why I said, I think you both make good
But
points.
I'm not done. The sales
Yeah.
tax, if you want to talk about the poorest and on groceries, we could talk about the sales tax credit relief if you want to go down that road. If we're throwing out new tax proposals, because this is a change, the 2950 is nothing that we've negotiated between the two of us. I thought we were making good progress until this turned back into this conversation on taxes. We can talk it. We'll talk the rest of the day on taxes if you want to. But I thought we were making tremendous progress going through this budget with Chairman Hall and Chairman Wallace.
So I want to make sure that's clear. It's been several times. It's been a change in position, and while not now, I was a trial lawyer for a while, so I tend to back up my points. It's on YouTube, approximately 37 minutes and 45 seconds Governor makes it incredibly clear. Actually goes into layout. You use some cool hand signals, by the way, to make it clear about flattening the rate. It was a 3-hour meeting, so things get lost. But
It's awful convenient. You had 37 and 56 at your disposal. That's awesome.
yeah, 37. It was
56.
37:45.
37:45.
Yeah, 37 minutes and 45 seconds. But the key I want to make sure that is not confused when we're going back and forth, though, is because, again, I think it gets confusing to the public. So it's not new. That was the position on Monday. And to be clear, it's not a quarter-point cut. 37:45, great thing about having it, great thing about having this on there. Everybody gets to see it. Everybody gets to listen for themselves. 3 hours. A lot of people missed it in good faith. They're at this table and are not. But what the tax cut is, which we could pay for if we wanted to for at least 1 year, we could sunset it after 2. Instead, we may end up funding higher education. It's for the poorest Oklahomans.
So House Bill
That's what it is.
2950 does not have a quarter-point tax cut built into it.
I don't know what House Bill 2950, what I
That's what
can,
it's on your spreadsheet.
Yes.
I know it's after $400 million in growth, but what he just said, it doesn't have a quarter. That is factually inaccurate.
It has a path to zero.
It could.
Yeah,
It could.
yeah, the path is, I agree.
I've
And-
never been a trial lawyer, but I caught you in a factual inaccuracy.
I don't, and let me tell you why I don't think you did. Because you said for the first time that we were trying to flatten the rate. That's
No, it's the first time
fundamentally
I've
not
heard the governor come to that position. Maybe I'll go back to, maybe I was looking at my phone at the time. I did not hear the 30.
fair enough. Yeah, factually there.
Yeah.
When we're talking about quarter point tax cut, I agree. You have to be able to separate those two things. We had a whole conversation on that earlier about how you have to raise revenue before you do a quarter
But the
point.
statement, I want to be clear, you are baking in a quarter point reduction based on growth in 2950, which the tax commission said when fully realized is an $809 million annual cost to the treasury.
There is never yet, I actually do think I would classify that true but misleading. If you were to couple it with, there's never an occasion where that tax cut would take into place without getting more revenue after the tax cut is done. So government will continue to grow after that tax cut. Then yes, I think your statement is
Let's just
correct.
go to zero right now then.
As long as you say, okay, government will be bigger and people will get more of their checks, then yes, that's a true statement the way you said it. You just have to
I
say-
believe in the principal you're espousing. But I also believe that we cut it 2 years ago. I also believe that we cut franchise. I believe we cut marriage penalty. I believe we provided great tax relief to Oklahomans in the form of school choice. That's going to escalate by $50 million this next year. We have $212.5 million in known escalators in our costs next year, absent any other tax conversation. We know the grocery tax is going to cost $104 million more to next year's budget than it does for FY25, the one we're currently negotiating. We know that the school choice tax credit is going to grow by 50 million. I don't apologize. I think that's awesome. You were a huge part of that, and I appreciate it. We have one-time expenses that we are paying, requiring the healthcare authority to pay in both of our budgets. So just at the very base, before you take into account any other tax conversation, you all, well, you and I won't, but the rest of you all will have $212.5 million more next year in recurring expenses just by what we've already done. And so I want to make sure that when we're having a revenue conversation, we're not having an isolated conversation on just one portion of a potential bill that has not been fully vetted, by our side at least. I'm not suggesting you haven't vetted it. But if we want to have a revenue conversation, what's happening? We need to make sure we protect the investments we've made in school choice. We need to make sure we protect the investments we made in roads and bridges. We need to make sure we protect the investments we made in teachers as of late. To do it in a fashion that is rushed without conversation and a look toward the future jeopardizes all of those investments and quite frankly jeopardizes the future of Oklahoma.
So Mr. Pro Tem, on this line item that was talking about deferred maintenance, is it your position to come to the House at 335 mil versus the 500?
Hey, I appreciate you bringing us back to the sheet.
I got one other point after this, but yes, are you on the House position?
As I suggested to you earlier, Chairman Hall is talking about the line items.
So, I mean, Mr. Chairman, you and I have talked, the good news is that I think both of our chambers recognize the need to address deferred maintenance.
Can we agree on a budget number?
What we agree on is that deferred maintenance is necessary. And the fact that we have cash that we can put in a legacy-like fund to be able to address long-term deferred maintenance needs that have been difficult for us to address for a long time. We're here at the right opportunity at the right time to be able to take care of these things, be able to take care of higher education, be able to take care of state assets, and to be able to take care of our parks, which have been much needed for a long time.
Sounds like it sounds like you're one, we need to pass on this one right now and come back to it.
I actually think we're in agreement. I agree with everything
I
you
agree
said.
with
I
this.
just
I think we're
need
agree with the policy. I'm not sure that we're there with the
You're
number
not
yet.
ready to commit to a specific number yet.
I don't think either party is ready to that yet, because I think we really do have some details to work out on the formula, especially based on if we spend money at OU like our committee did yesterday, Rogers State, any other programs we want to. We need to really figure out what that total is so we can figure out the fairest formula, and then when we find out the fairest formula, we can work through that. And we will work in good faith to get to an agreement on that.
I trust you will. One other comment you made about healthcare authority. Do you have any idea how much healthcare authority is sitting on right now in their budget?
I'm
Not
sure
the
it's-
budget, the revolving fund.
I'm sure it's a lot of money.
1.5 billion. I just want to make sure if you're looking for $1 billion, I can tell you where we got another billion.
Yeah, but that there are strings attached to those dollars.
Absolutely.
And there are a lot of
The
those
reason
are
that
federal
money's
dollars.
there. and if made
We
this
can't
argument-
commingle them though. We cannot commingle them. We've gotten in trouble as a state before when we've commingled federal dollars and state
True,
dollars.
but those are state dollars because they come in based on a match and we have over appropriated them. That's the reason we had that big surplus last year. The House's position was to make them fund more of their budget than 600 mil.
This year, this
No,
FY20.
last year.
Okay. Are you trying to get it in the 416 position you went back to? Is that what reflected in there?
No.
Okay.
Uh,
I would like-
I'm just talking about a comment you made about with the healthcare authority, and I just want to lay out. The reason that they have that surplus money is because of the appropriations we made in the enhanced match. So we've over appropriated, we kept the appropriations level at that same portion. One other comment you made, you didn't want to consider the preservation fund, which in their base every year is another 160 million that will be going into that fund. But literally, the fact that we have appropriated them at the same volume or dollar amount and the match has increased, they have surplus. Those are state dollars, they're not federal dollars sitting there.
Well,
They
I
wouldn't
think
have a
that's,
surplus, but I just wanted to point that out.
yeah, I appreciate that. I think I was not referring to anything you said. I was referring to some charts the governor has used in the past to show him that you and Chairman Thompson and myself have grown state government somehow. I think it's a very misleading chart based on that $600 million. And I also think it's very misleading based on the a little over $1 billion that we pulled off of apportionments and put into our appropriations authority. We agreed to that because we thought it brought greater transparency. So I was actually applauding you, not criticizing.
Well, no, but healthcare authorities are different. But while we're on that topic, the House position is I like to make an authorization section in the GA bill again this year for OLAP, for transparency as well. Same as we did teacher retirement and.
So if we did that, it would pull into our appropriations, which may be misleading. If
It's not
somebody,
an appropriation, it's an authorization. So it looks like one, it's still an apportionment.
But I agree 100% what you're saying.
Yes.
We made more of the budget appropriated versus non-appropriated, and that could be spun as a negative thing, but it's 100% not.
thank you.
I agree 100% with what you said.
I'm sure you don't want to agree on 335.
For the deferred maintenance fund?
Yes.
No, you and I are going to have to really talk about that. I'm not sure that we're not where we need to be related to the allocations of those dollars.
So back to higher ed and LCF.
Back to higher ed and LCF. Yeah, so quick question for you. That may just be, Mr. Pro Tem, thank you for reminding everybody that I've only been on this job for a week. I appreciate that, but
I'm sure.
I'm just asking because I don't know.
Meeting for
With the House's desire to add another 300 and, what's the number now?
350 million.
350 million to LCF, to the 600 that was originally put in. I guess my question is, that's a certified fund, correct?
BOE.
Is that certified in the BOE?
It is created statutorily as a revolving fund, which means it does not lapse and should not be subject to certification. However, it was in last year's certification. I will be interested to see if it is in next year's certification. If I were guessing.
Well, it was in
I would guess
this
not.
year's current certification. So my question is, if you add 350 million, will that constitute growth?
It's not general revenue, no.
Okay. The certified number would be increased.
I see what you're asking, but we statutorily did not set it up as a certified fund.
But it has been certified by the BOE.
Good job.
I would go on the record as saying, it's my
That'd be a
opinion, it
question
wasn't
for DOE,
properly
but
certified
we did
as a
back it
fund.
out of our revenue because it was added into the.
It's on this
appropriating
sheet.
authority.
Yeah, so I mean, would it be included in total tax collection, I guess is my question. I mean, honestly, don't know. But it is a concern. I mean, if we're talking about, some sort of expected growth model that you are using from Loft as opposed to tax, I'm just curious.
So I want to
what the
clarify,
effects of that was.
we're not using dynamic scoring or anything like that from Loft on. I know we're getting back on the tax bill, so I'm going to try not to go there, Mr. Pro Tem. But what that fiscal impact is measuring is the tax cut is only triggered if there's growth. So the tax cut's contingent upon the growth. That's why it also has. So there's not a dynamic scoring metric.
I guess my question is, would there be some sort of growth piece by the deposit to the LCF fund that is different than the actual growth that we were looking, that was being expected by Loft? I guess is my question. I don't know the answer to that. I just know that I was somewhat surprised to see that the BOE certified the LCF fund.
We were as well.
Okay.
So we also backed out the difference when you looked at the savings sheet I gave you last Monday as well. Expenditure.
Well, if you want to continue.
So that's it. The LCF is included in your savings number.
It was included in the BOE number.
Oh,
So we backed it out.
I'm tracking there.
Okay.
Anyway, I think that's a discussion point. I think we'd like to know that, but if you want to continue to talk about the Legacy Capital Fund, I mean, we established the Legacy Capital Fund with the $600 million, deposit. We put almost 350 million out in the first round of legacy programs. I think that this budget will reflect a desire, at least by the House and I think we have some programs that we'd like to, we're interested in funding some capital projects, but maybe not completely through LCF. But hypothetically, if we did all LCF funding, we'd be looking at roughly another $350 million. I guess I'm asking, why are you all coming from on putting an additional 350 in when it would only, if we hypothetically did all of the LCF projects that are proposed in this budget, they would only require another $50 million deposit to cover that.
As you recall, in the negotiations last year, do you remember what I was requesting we put in LCF?
I do remember.
What was that number?
$1 billion.
$1 billion. So I do think there's a lot of confusion about the LCF fund, how it's structured, what it's set up for, and the ultimate goal and use. So as a state, if we self-fund and finance projects, I don't have the number this year, but previous year, there was 270 some million worth of debt service on the books. 178 mil. That is going out to other entities versus the state of Oklahoma. We are in a good position. We can self-fund by creating that legacy fund and then putting the debt service back in the agencies, which we're paying ourselves. And there has been conversations about charging the agencies interest just like you would on bonding. You could do that, but we're charging ourselves, and you would just have to increase the base for the agencies for the debt service. So there's been other statements I've heard that it's a Ponzi scheme. It's not. We're paying for the legacy fund program upfront with cash, then authorizing issuances of projects, just like we would a bond. And then we're building back in the base of any agency that we do that, the debt service on a 20-year model.
Yeah, well, I mean, Mr. Chairman, I don't think that we disagree on there is a value and a purpose for LCF, and I think we can see that it's working. I mean, the bond authorizations that you and Anthony just talked about were equivalent of $55 million or so of interest that is through an LCF project is dramatically reduced, as you know, to zero. I think the speaker and I can both agree the value of liquidity management. And so this program certainly does that. I guess two questions. One, I still am curious about the need for the additional deposit over and above what we plan to do in legacy projects now, which takes me back to my concern with it being a certified number. Will that constitute growth? And I think we'll get that. I think that we'll get that figured out. The other question that I have relates to when you're talking about the LCF fund is kind of set up as a 20-year, typically is kind of a 20-year kind of a payout program. 1/20th is what we would appropriate to an agency that's taken a part of the LCF program. But we have at least one glaring in my mind and several others that I question the need to actually LCF. For example, I mean, at some point we're going to be talking about the OETA tower improvements, the 11 tower improvements, for which I think you're going to see that we've come to an agreement on. The question, or what we haven't come to agreement on, is how to finance those. And I think my concern would be the useful life of these towers not exceeding 20 years. And so if we have the cash to go ahead and pay for it, and Mr. Speaker, I mean, we're speaking our language, just might make some sense. And I think you're going to see that reflected in our subcommittee's work to pay for something with cash that may not have a useful life, that would hit 20 years or so those are discussions that we need to have. You want to have the discussion about legacy capital deposit, but I don't think we can have that discussion yet until we decide what the proper form for financing long-term versus short-term to be.
2 points. We are paying for it with cash, with deposits into the legacy capital fund. If we want to change the term, duration of the payback, we can have those discussions. But basically, whenever we created the fund last year, it was just everything on a 20-year. Whenever you're looking at investments of smaller amounts, sure. Or if you look at the life, depreciation, and everything else of a item, building, bridges, whatever. We're not doing bridges, but most of them are lasting long that. Well, if you want to do it shorter for OETA, we haven't got there yet, but I'm happy to entertain that discussion.
Yep. I mean, I think I said towers, but I meant transmitters on the OETA. So I think it's fine to have that discussion. I think it's a little premature at this point. I think that we ought to work through and see our subcommittee's work compared with what you. Now, for all of these projects, you wanted to LCF all of these. I think you'll see our subcommittees we're looking at some of them that a willingness to LCF those potentially, and then some of them a desire for you to consider that we go ahead and use the cash that we have now. So either way, you're taking cash and you're either paying for the product or you're moving it to the LCF and to protect us long term under the liquidity model.
You're
So
still using cash paid for.
that's right. Either way,
Using cash, either way.
that's exactly right.
Basically, though, the structure on that, anything capital, that's kind of our position. If it's capital investment, definitely qualifies to run through LCF. And one of these days, when we do have a downturn, if we need to, we can suspend payments to ourselves, does not hit our bottom line, does not affect our bond rating. And let's just say, if we ever do have $1 billion out there in self-funded construction capital projects, then I don't have the number, but it's going to be somewhere close to saving 100 million out of the budget automatically, immediately.
Sure. But we still, we have this balance out here of 299, almost $300 million with 349 million of proposed projects. I think that's worthy of discussion. May not be today, but it's worthy of discussion. The need to make an additional $350 million deposit.
350 is what we did out of the fund last year. So they're out of 600. So there's the math for you. Basically, there should be about 249 or 250 left.
Sure.
Those are those payments back. And in future years, long after all of us are gone, this fund will probably take over and start doing the deferred maintenance for the state of Oklahoma as well.
Well, it'd certainly be a lot easier if we get to the number that you're suggesting be in the LCF fund.
I heard your strong argument on how important deferred maintenance was in the investment. I think we're in agreement.
It is important. I think you agree with me on that.
I did.
Senator Hall, I do want to commend you and thank you for assuming that we're always in agreement from a banking perspective. But I might add on it. I think you make a good point in terms of looking at the life of the asset versus the expenditure, but using one-time cash for the asset of OETA and we're talking about, it's got a much longer life than 1 year at a time. So, I think you take a look at structuring it, the repayment through the LCF differently, something that does match. But if nobody feels like we've got problems with anything we need to hedge against, then we can just do 1 year cash because we know revenues are going to be there. I can accept that just like we can cut taxes. But I'm happy to have that conversation. I'm sure we can meet somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think we can be there. Governor, you want to keep going down the list, or where are we at? What do you want to do?
Well, you guys are making a lot of progress, and if we want to adjourn and then just continue to meet privately, that's kind of the process that I think we've started today. I don't know if we need to keep going here, but
Let's keep moving. We need to keep going.
Okay.
Let's keep moving.
Great.
Because we got a long way to go.
I may have a 4:30 out for an appointment, but let's keep going.
Great.
Pro Tem, on these things, are you authorizing your budget chair to speak with ours on trying to
They can have
hammer
conversations.
out the numbers?
Agreements must be done in public, from our perspective. So, I've enjoyed hearing what you've said in years past. You've recanted, hey, what did I say this year, that year? Now all of Oklahoma can know what you said. So I appreciate you recanting because we haven't enjoyed that opportunity in the past. But I think that we have ample time to continue on today. I think we keep getting sidetracked. Obviously, we have a difference on the revenue side. I think we can have that conversation, but I also think that like on the legacy capital, I think Chairman Hall articulated quite well academically where we're at, but I think the academics where the rubber will meet the road is which projects do we come to agreement on using LCF, and then I think we can determine what the deposit is thereafter. Obviously, you'd want more of a deposit than the cost of the ones we agreed to. We understand that, we respect that, but we can't make that agreement until we know what projects we agree to. If we agree to $0 in projects, there's no reason to deposit $350 million into it. I'll remind you all that when John Michael Montgomery and myself sent the legacy fund over to the House that ended up not being adopted, y'all shelved it. We were trying to get to $1 billion to pay for a quarter point tax cut, and you all rejected that idea. You came up with a quite meritorious project though, and so I've been impressed with the creativity of it, and I want to make sure we use it in a judicious manner, and we'll be able to figure out what the proper deposit is once we know which projects we've agreed to.
But your discussions that you may have when this meeting wraps up today, it's gonna ultimately come back to right where we are today and having that discussion. So I don't know I don't know.
But I think the conference committee is where the difference is. There's the deferred maintenance and the legacy on the deferred maintenance side, at least. There's an active bill in conference that will go through the normal process there.
But the conference bill that you're speaking of, the language that goes in that will be what we decide in this room.
Correct.
So.
There's no money in that bill though.
But on the deferred maintenance side, I think that my position is capital projects that we may or may not fund at our two major research universities impact the position I would take on the formula used for the deferred maintenance. That's the position I'm trying to articulate. So I think we have to decide, are we going to do those projects? If we're going to do those projects, I think it's only fair to make sure that the regional universities, the 2 years, and frankly, OSU in the situation, if we choose to put more at OU, are treated in a fair manner. And so we have to have that conversation.
But there's no money in the conference bill. It's ultimately these discussions will lead to a JCAP bill.
Correct. The formula is impacted by these discussions. Yes, sir.
So we're going to make the decision in this room, correct? On that, you're just not ready to do that today. Is that correct?
We haven't gone through those projects. So I think we're getting the cart before the horse. We're talking about the amount of money before we agree to which projects comprise that amount of money. So I thought Chairman Hall was making great progress going down this. We keep getting diverted. I want you to remember we have not got off page 1 yet. Well, we went to the back page a couple times, but we haven't gone.
We were on higher ed. There's projects and else.
Yeah, no.
Higher ed. That's where I was trying to get.
No.
Yes.
I think it may be more productive, or at least we'll feel like we accomplished something if we continue, because I think we do have some areas of agreement that we can get to on these other agencies and subcommittees, and I think we may feel a little better about ourselves on my birthday if we come to agreement on a few other things.
We do have quite a bit of agreement, Mr. Chairman, if I might. It takes to the Department of Career Tech. You'll see that there, I'll let whoever's running the computer there go up to the third section of education in the pink there, Career Tech. So you'll see that we have a great deal of agreement, with the exception of the wait list.
We're gonna go right back to the back page.
What's that?
Go right ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know if you wanted me to be part of that conversation or not.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the agency request for the wait list, we were referring to it as the wait list. That being those a little over 7,000 students that are still waiting for programs to be developed at the Career Tech system. One thing I think we can come to a lot of agreements today, but I think we can all agree that our Career Tech system here in Oklahoma is probably the best in the country. Wouldn't you agree, Governor?
I think all these ideas are fantastic. I just think we need to keep in mind the taxpayers, and before we spend another $100 million on this or that, we should do a tax cut.
So we're waiting.
I do want to point out, you call it a wait list, but it is the request of the Agency for Workforce Development. But go right ahead. So that's going, we don't
Yeah.
agree on that.
So-
So put us back on the back page for.
So we
100 mil for workforce development.
So, and I think
those are two separate.
we were here before. I think we were conflating the two, and I was trying to refocus us on, so the semantics, what they are. I agree with you that the agency request was the workforce development. I think we more accurately define exactly what it is we're talking about when we refer to it as a wait list. And that's at 7,000 some odd students that are still waiting for their open window to get into these programs. So these are students that can be trained up if the programs are there and set up and be ready to go straight into the workforce upon completion of the program. And so again, they're on the back sheet that you referred to. There's a workforce piece for $100 million that there's workforce development to be used around multiple agencies and multiple areas. This is specific to career tech to take care of what we're referring to as the wait list. That's 7,100 students that are waiting today.
So the challenge is that $100 million ask on workforce, I mean, that does tie into career tech conversation though, because what is that? I believe there was legislation. I don't think it's still alive. I mean, is it still the Senate's position to pursue that $100 million to the Workforce Commission? And what is that? I mean, what are the specifics? What's that $100 million going towards? What's it going to do? I genuinely don't know.
Sure. And
also, before we move on, and I'm jumping to a different agency that we have agreement, but in higher ed, we did not fund critical workforce development for nursing, critical workforce development for physicians, critical workforce development for adult degrees. The House position was to fund zero workforce development because of the ask on the back page, because of the Senate bill for $100 million for workforce commissions. And I've been on the record, and I will say it again, until we get resolution on that 100 million and the House position is zero, I didn't fund any workforce. I'm not opposed to workforce, but I need to know what is the mission, what are they going to do with 100 million, which I don't think I'm ever going to get there. But before I can agree to fund in career tech or higher ed workforce development, we have to have resolution. And it's not agency by agency, line by line, it's an aggregate budget.
I understand that, but we're on a line by line as we're dealing with career tech and eliminating this 7,000 students that are waiting for these programs.
Your position is need to resolve the 100.
Yes,
Before we
it's all
can
tied
resolve
together.
this.
It's all under workforce development.
That makes sense.
Okay.
And by the way, that bill is dead. You made a comment on Monday about if the bill's dead, we're going to take it off, right? And then there was some discussion over here, well, maybe not, but if it is the Senate's position, the bill's dead, let's take it off. I agree with that.
I appreciate you listening so intently. Can you
I
point
pay
to
attention
can you
to
point
you
to the
more.
minute and seconds?
I don't have
Give me a few minutes and I can-
time. I'm sure somebody will send it to me.
Clearly, Eccles, do you have the minutes from that?
Give or take 131.
I think there's a disagreement. Chairman Wallace, with all candor and respect to your position, I think that's a wise, what are we funding for that? I think that's a very fair question. We'll have that same question when we talk about prep, when we talk about LCF, all that. So I think it's a very fair position. Right now, you're a no on that line item, but we can have a conversation about whether or not we come to something on workforce.
If we get to an agreement on the back page on workforce for 100 million on a bill that's dead, I will gladly come back and have a conversation about workforce in both higher ed and career tech.
Okay. Position noted.
Yeah, thank you for that. When you look at OCAST, which is next on my sheet, you'll find that we're really close in agreement. I guess my question, when we're looking at SB 1309, which was not heard in House committee, we'll stipulate to that. We had booked in the SR 31 plus $1 million for that. You all were on 5.6 in your portal at 500,000.
Yes, and the education sub chairs have agreed to that position before.
To the 500,000.
They have.
This is you. I guess my note here is that this was the funding bill, the 1309. Is that correct?
Yep, it's a Senate bill listed, also one-time program based on the notes I've got here. Is that right?
It was funding from law back in 21.
21. The kid bill from 21.
Yep.
Okay.
I I showed that the chairs had agreed to it.
I'm sorry.
500.
I mean,
Yeah, I think, I think in the matter of being expeditious, I think the House or the Senate will come to your position.
Thank you. I mean, McBride and Hugh negotiated, so.
We're talking 500,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Ready to move on, Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Okay, it looks like we're in sync on the Commissioner of Land Office. We're also lined up with the Oklahoma School of Science and Math. Do you agree?
Yes, the land office, Commissioner came. I do want to note that when the agency was asking for internal audit, and they did come back and say after meeting multiple times in front of Senate subcommittees, they just said that they would absorb the cost, and I agreed to take it off.
So we're to the Department of Libraries. Now, while it looks like that, that we're a little far apart, I don't believe so. I think it's a matter of just agreeing that, we're looking at funding the same thing. We're about, 48,000 off. I think that our impression was that for the records investment that you are showing here for 50,000, that we had thought that would be in the preservation and operations a piece, and so if that's the case, we're not terribly far off.
So I believe, and we had it broke down as the agency's request was different than the line that you had funded, I believe, off my memory. Hold on.
It looks like we have the one-times and the recurring split out. So operations would be recurring, correct?
Their agency requests.
Yeah. Right, but I think what we were doing is rolling up these numbers into the operations number that we're reflecting at the top.
Yeah, so there's a $58,000 difference, 57,500.
Yeah.
So you're including them all into the operations and not
Yes.
one time?
Well, the preservation of archives and operations, we are reflecting that at 402 as the one time, but restoring the funding levels at 400,000 would be recurring.
But you're not considering the operations recurring?
Yeah, currently, I think it goes back to that discussion of the pots of money that we were having earlier. We probably should have a discussion about whether or not it should be recurring.
On operations?
The operational increase, which were the agency has.
I would assume that that'd be a recurring expense.
I don't.
Okay, yeah.
Come to recurring.
Is that where they're at?
Yeah.
We'll come to your recurring on that.
Yeah, I mean, and we're not off a lot of money, but I did want to make sure
I
that
think-
one time, it's one time.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think if you could just you come to our position on the records investment, we're talking, we would be there and make the operational funds recurring on the top line item, because we believe that the 50,000 is included in our preservation of archives and operations number.
Okay, I'll come to your number.
All right, I believe we're in agreement in the Department of Libraries. The Healthcare Workforce Training Commission, I believe we're in agreement there. You concur?
Yes.
Okay. We'll go down to the State Arts Council. And so there is, I think I think it's just, this is something that's needed for you and I to be able to sit down and talk and kind of just get some clarification. When you're looking at the removal of the Jim Thorpe moving costs, you can see that we're at $74,000. You all are at, to pull that back. You all are at the full amount of the 420. I think that our thought process were, I'm willing to talk that out with you, that certainly, the extra was put in there to handle their moving expenses. But it's my understanding that rents and expenses associated with being in a different building are needed to, the additional monies are needed to maintain, to pay for the additional expense associated with being in a new building. But I'm open for you all's understanding or.
I'm showing the agency only asked for the 663 and you're funding them at 900. That's part of the difference.
So if you're talking about the 3-year grant program, my education chair, along with the subcommittee, I think it was their desire to see this they viewed this as a 3-year grant program. So they were looking at roughly breaking it up into $300,000 and fully funding the 3-year program. It appears to me that you all were looking at just funding the agency's request for a 1-year program. But our subcommittee discussions, they kind of believe that the 900 fully funding the 3-year grant program that brings down the cost for the annual cost, and it would allow them to administer the grant program.
The request, I'm showing the total request for the program is 663.
What agency are we at? Sorry.
We're Department of Libraries. I'm sorry, the State Arts Council. So I do have that the agency request was for 663, what you all are looking here for, for a 1 year, but, so that was the original request was for 1 year. But I think our subcommittee determined that a 3-year program to help target all 77 counties would serve us better than just a single program. I think it's a belief of our subcommittee that at 900,000, at 300,000 a year, we could really do some good and adopt that 3-year program.
So
Why verification that it's going to cost that? Why are we going to fund more than the agency's asking for?
Well,
It's the difference between a 1-year program and a 3-year program. So
If it's math, it's about 600 and something for 1 year, it'd be 1,900 versus
yes, but
900.
so
Unless they
no,
figure one.
it makes sense. But my subcommittee chair and working with the State Arts Council believes that if they had a commitment for a 3-year grant program, which would, by doing the math, would be 300,000 a year, that it could more than comport with the desire of the program.
So why don't we commit to funding the first year of the program, and then, it's essentially on our books as a recurring. This is where we got into challenges with the 3-year programs we did in common education last year. It's confusing because we can just agree to fund it in the future if we're gonna do it.
So you're suggesting that it's the 663 for a one-time? Is that what is that your?
I'm suggesting if we're saying the cost over 3 is 900, but I would assume a good chunk of that's one time if the first year cost is 663, and then in the following 2 years we fund the gap. If I'm following correctly.
Yep.
Here's the 3. This is the 3-year.
So what I have from their request, they actually have it broken down into 4 categories. 501,539 for Route 66, which is a 3-year investment. Rural arts infrastructure is $40,000 for 5% increase in grants. 5% increase in community arts and partnership grants at $97,097, and then $25,000 for folk and traditional arts initiative.
Yeah, so thank you, Mariah. Is there so there's a Route 66 piece in here, right, for which was a 3-year program, correct?
It's the largest part of the grant program,
At
right?
a little over 500.
So their request reads, for the first of a 3-year special investment. So that 501 would be 1 year of a 3-year investment from the way I read it.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm really not sure that we're going to get agreement on to this one at this moment. I think we have, we want to kind of evaluate this, the agency request and some pieces in that. Certainly are interested in funding the program for the rural arts. And I think the House is there too. It's just a matter of where we want to be.
We can just move on then.
Oklahoma if that's right. Oklahoma OETA,
So the rural arts, we had agreement prior to, is that what you're getting at?
well, we had agreement in looks like 3 of the 4 areas. I don't think that we're there on the grant program and rural arts infrastructure. We can come back and evaluate that.
Okay.
And I'm willing to work with you on it. The OETA, we're back to the towers piece. I think that we are in agreement there of funding doing the capital investment. It's just a matter of circling back and having a discussion on whether that's LCF or one time or ratcheting down on the amortization schedule as the speaker offered up.
I think we should do it as out of the LCF as a capital investment. I would like to find out the life expectancy of the transmitters and then build that into the debt service pay schedule.
Well, the good news is that I do believe we're in agreement on funding the capital, the capital piece. It's just a matter of circling back, and I think that the Senate would like to look at the totality of understanding agreement of all of the potential LCF projects before we circle back on talking about whether we use cash or LCF.
Just for clarification, LCF is still cash, but yes.
Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we're using cash either way, yes.
So when we look at the operations expense, operations increase for OETA, I'm just open to knowing why your position is at 75,000. I have the agency ask at 143.
Absolutely. The sub-tiers agreed to that. Q and Bride.
When did those discussions take place?
Give me just a moment.
April 29th.
April 29th, as you recall, we was in Senator Thompson's office conference room, and you were there present as well.
So I think that there was the desire of the pro tem and the Senate that we circle back with that and run that through the subcommittee. The subcommittee did circle back and do that, after gaining an understanding of discussions that took place, I think that they're still in line with the wanting to comport with the agency ask as a result of the full subcommittees taking a look at it. Go right ahead.
Go ahead.
Let's not get caught up on the 70. Let's just go to their number. We'll be fine.
All right, we'll come to your number. Mr. Chairman, and again, it might be out of my, maybe you can give me a little history or some of the staff as we looked at the removal of the one time for the video equipment. I guess we're having a difficult time finding where it ever went in. If you could point to that, that would be helpful.
I have some information on the transmitters. I'm texting Garrett King. He was the president of the board at OETA. He says the lifetime of those transmitters is 25 years.
25 years, good to know.
So that exceeds the 20 year of the LCF.
It's good to know.
I did make sure I could quote him directly before I said his name.
I'm glad you did. So the removal of the video equipment, this was before me, but I think we were finding it difficult to to find where it went, where it went in.
I don't want to misspeak, but I believe we're gonna get it shown to us right here.
I bet you do. Get some good people down there.
Mariah, you wanna just tell us, since you're looking at it?
I really need to.
Yeah, so in FY '23, we had funded HVAC at 150. It looks like the agreement last year was to remove that, but then put 150 back in for the Department of Video Equipment. So,
But you're removing the 150?
Yeah, because we funded it as a one-time last year as well. 2 years in a row, we've done one.
But it wasn't the video equipment, it was the HVAC?
HVAC for FY '23 and then video equipment in FY '24.
So we did video equipment.
We did operations.
So have the HVAC and the video equipment been, is it complete?
I've not heard anything else.
No, we
It's
have,
been funded, that'd be a question for the agency.
we have those operations recurring.
Is what we did last year.
Yes.
The deal.
So we have ownership.
Okay, so Anthony's reminding me about our work from last year where we put that in operations for recurring.
That gets to the point that's real important about these discussions for next year, whether or not it's recurring or one time.
No
And we
disagree.
do keep a very good detailed log of one time.
No disagree. And
The House believes that.
As does
we
the
paid for it one time last year. That's why we had it back up.
We'll have a great archive now. I mean, it's streaming. so-
There you go. You go back and look at it.
Yeah.
it'll be pretty public.
We do at the end of every session, put out, what do we title that, the summary?
We also have a dashboard for our budget, book from last year, which documents the one time as the video equipment. I think we uploaded that last August.
I appreciate that's your position. Yeah. I'm not suggesting we come to it. I understand that's what you're saying is.
That's what I believe that we funded in the FY '24 budget for them last year, one
Yeah.
time, 150.
Chairman Moss, I want to circle back to that because
this? Oh, yeah. Man, he's got the loudest nose on. Yeah.
well, the fear I can have
I'm glad everyone
that I
can see
have,
that.
obviously is if we were looking at recurring dollars in operations, that if I agree to pull this back, come to the House's position, we could potentially be cutting the operations budget for OETA. So I'd like to check into that if I could before I agree.
Well, I will say this, it would appear on paper, but if you do the LCF, put the debt service back in there, it's neutral, it's flat budget.
Do you like the LCF?
It's a great concept. You should get on board.
So I'm texting Garrett still. He's saying that HVAC and video equipment is funded with some help from their nonprofit. They got that funding. So, but you guys feel free to follow up with them as well. And we can circle back to that.
So they in effect didn't use the 150 then for the.
No, they did. We funded it. Us plus the Friends of OETA.
That's what I'm
nonprofit
saying.
Got it funded.
Right.
There is a long history with, the foundation lawsuit split. Are you aware of all that?
I'm somewhat familiar with the history, yes.
That's unrelated to this.
I know, I just want to make sure
Chase that
they do have a foundation.
So the Office of Education Quality and Accountability, I think we're in agreement with. Check mark?
But before we turn the page,
Yes.
I do, getting into some text from Representative Osborne, on the 950K on the speech pass audiologist, psychologist, got some more information on that. And I know you guys came to our position, but the reason that request is there is because there's been an increase in those professionals. And we've been giving them a $5,000 bonus every year. So if we do not increase it, then they would all receive a cut because there's now more in the pipeline. So it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman. We add that back in and go to their position on that.
What's your recommendation, sure?
Doing Mike Osborne, yeah,
I agree.
Representative Osborne.
There you go.
So we're coming back to the
Only if it's
950
agreeable to the
position.
Senate.
Okay,
We're agreeable to coming back to our position.
we are agreeable.
Make our position, please.
Yeah, and we will be recurring.
Yeah.
Okay. Oakland Board of Private Vocational Schools, appears that we're in agreement.
One thing, can I make a request? And I want to ask you guys to come to our order. It would be helpful, but anyway.
You can come to our order.
I'm just used to my spreadsheet.
We're used to ours.
Maybe we should have another summit and discuss it.
Well, it's in the same subcommittee, but they're not in order.
Just draw them out and not be the most random.
Draw them out, yeah, random.
A statewide charter, we're in agreement, it appears to me.
Aggregate number broke out two different ways, right? And we have them on the back page, and you have them here in education.
What's that?
We have them on the back page, you have them here in education, new agency.
Yes.
I won't ask questions.
6.7 total, I believe.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. Yep, that's correct. OTRS, the BOE estimate we are in agreement with, and then the cost to teachers' retirement due to the grocery tax elimination we're in agreement.
Agreed. I only have a couple items. Sure you don't want to finish up this subcommittee?
What are the couple items?
I-9M, one.
What's that?
Workforce development.
What is?
Our stipends, and then the other workforce development on the back page for 100.
And what was your argument on those?
One, bad policy on stipends. But I would trade money for the formula for a tax cut. We've had that conversation.
You've said that, yeah, several
Yeah,
times.
the other piece of that would be workforce. The Senate bill's dead for the 100 mil on the workforce commission.
It's
Higher
dead,
ed,
why?
it wasn't heard.
Well, neither was House Bill 2950 that you were booking the tax cut on. So if you want to have an agreement, we take
You
off.
just brought that up. But
Yeah,
anyway.
no, you just said that you were agreeable to things that have died being coming off. So House Bill 2950 did not pass the deadline. So if you want to start, we can.
I will have the conversation if you would tell me what the
Hey, the
use
speaker's
of,
not here, just agree to.
what the use of the workforce commission 100 mil is going to be, but I can tell you what the purpose of the tax cut. for the-
Well, I can tell you, but if you want to go to my grid that I talked about on Monday, if bills are dead, I appreciate you bringing that up. I don't remember which minute I said that, but I do remember saying that. And if we want to go to that, I think that's great. That means the process works. So House Bill 2950 did not get a hearing on our side. Therefore, it's dead. You didn't want to invest in workforce. Therefore, it's dead.
Semantics. I think we're in a special session. We can introduce a new bill and put the
We
same
don't have
language
to
in
do
it, send it to you.
It's already out there.
Anyway,
You know, the governor's taking a position in court that we can't have a concurrent
that's a
special.
conversation for him. We're on budget.
Go ahead. I think we need to go to the next page. I don't think
So we can argue and then get along later.
Hey, we got it taken care of.
We're good?
Yeah. All right, thank you all.
All right, so
Got the tax cut figured out, do you?
Yeah, no, he did tell us, bills that were dead
General government
are
transportation.
dead.
We're for that except for when we're not. So make our position.
We can check off a lot of boxes.
I appreciate that.
finance, which we should be in agreement, I believe, tax commission,
For what?
tax commission.
Oh, so you're in general government.
Well, we have it under
different
finance.
breakouts, but yeah.
Well,
Tax commission, we're in agreement, right?
yes.
Okay. All right, now, Gen Gov. Talk about parity.
Oh, we're on the budget, yeah.
Gen Gov.
Well, hang on, they have this
It's not, we don't-
50 million rebate. Is that on our sheet too? I just want to make sure.
On what?
We have it in miscellaneous. Okay, I was just making sure because we haven't booked it.
You have what, in different places?
That 50 million for emission rebates.
Oh, yeah, that's on our back page.
So we're good?
Miscellaneous.
Yeah.
Okay,
Do you have a book on your back page? Tax.
just want to make sure.
Where's it booked on the back?
Miscellaneous, I think so, where I said.
That's, you said Bill 1505.
You don't see it?
Yeah, it's there on the revenue.
I only have this one.
those would be the differences that we had, so we're in agreement.
Somewhere on some sheet.
Got a whole lot
Appreciate
of
it.
parts, but it's on there. Where
So that's can't.
Putting it in tax.
We just agreed to it in the microphone, we're good.
we had to.
Right.
We can do that later.
All right.
So, DOT,
That was in Gen Gov. You want to go to transportation?
no, we can stay in Gen Gov if you want. I mean, we, as you know, we put them together.
All right. So let's go to Gen Gov and auditor inspector in agreement. Okay.
Yes.
All right, election board.
Election board, we are in agreement.
Emergency management. We are booking it on the back page.
I've got a question on that while we're there. You know, we confirmed the director today, as we talked on Monday, we would try to do, and we also talked about the 45 million. I know that Speaker-elect Hilbert would find out something about some in cash from FY '24 versus that. How do we effectuate that? Do we need to have a JCAB to effectuate that? Do we need a Speaker Pro Tem bill? I want to make sure that we don't delay unnecessarily on
Yeah, I think we would need a JCAB, but I would yield to our director.
Well,
That's a new program.
and,
isn't it?
and there's gonna have to be a new fund created, and that's based off of Florida model for the cash advance. So the $45 million number come from a text message through the executive.
Yes, sir.
I think we had 30 million based on the meeting that, and I was not in the meeting, but information conveyed back from staff. Tim Hilbert was there, and we'd actually gave extra 5 mil. We're wanting to fund everything. The breakdown was round number 6 mil for projects in the rear. They believe a total
Projects, I'm
in the
sorry.
rears.
Ready for closing.
I thought you said at Greer. I thought we were bringing up Greer sound. Yeah.
Skip over that one.
Yeah.
Then 18 million, they believe that would come in, but only 9 that would need funds for. And then they wanted 10 mil for a cash fund that would advance money for the municipalities or counties to access the.
To take their 12.5% match part.
That.
But that gets refunded, right? It's not a.
It would be held back out of their payment.
Kind of like what we were talking to Shawnee last year about, because they had a cash flow issue of trying to do their match, but making them whole, they have to reimburse that fund, correct?
Well, the.
The 12.5%.
emergency management should be holding funds back and just holding back the 12.5% before it goes to the community.
John says he's already got something drafted.
Oh, there you go.
Let's hear it, John.
Is that gonna be in their JCAB Saturday?
Do what?
Is that gonna be in the JCAB Saturday?
Do you have a JCAB
I got
Saturday?
another South for tomorrow and Saturday. I was optimistic.
Hey, man.
Something-
We say that. Have you kept that optimism?
Under those joint rules, we have to have 24-hour notice.
We also normally agree when we have a meeting of joint committee on appropriations and budget.
Something for you to read later there.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You always give me a lot of paper, but I'll go back and read it. I'll find some inconsistencies later, but I'm playing.
I asked her,
Hey, I like to print it. I'm old school.
You might ask Paul to look at that. The second page, there was one comment really funny. I was thinking about reading it, but I thought, man, I'm probably not better than this.
Well, hey, no, a serious matter. I mean, we agreed to 45 million on Monday. We're still there. The Senate is prepared to go up if we need to, based on the Barnsdall and Bartlesville experience. I know that it takes a while for them to actually need to spend those money, so I don't want to say that we have to, but we will not throttle down our efforts to be able to provide the best efforts for rescue or for rebuilding those communities and getting whole. And I think that's a shared desire. That's not just a Senate desire. So what my simple question is just, I'm fine doing a Speaker Pro Tem bill. I'm fine doing a JCAB bill. I'm fine. I know we've already got second read bills. So if we need to get that, I don't know the timing. The governor may know when they may need some of those monies, but I don't want to delay when we're having disagreements over 70,000 here or there to getting the money to where it needs to be.
I would suggest, because the $30 million number was before the Barnsdall tornado, and like the chairman said, 45 million works for us. let's get those out expeditiously. Let's agree to do a JCAP on Monday and start the process so it can be on his desk Thursday.
We're agreeable
We're
to
fine
that.
to that. We're fine with that.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, so we
Get that out Saturday.
internally are going to post our JCABs at 48 hours. So it'd be nice to have that language so we can have it posted up.
Post it up and present it.
May not be practical.
Yeah, I don't know if they could, I don't know if they get the language.
I thought you had the language already, is what you said.
Got a
He's working
draft.
on a
Oh,
draft.
okay. Well, language delay, if we have to, we'll do it as quickly as we
Feasible,
possibly
yeah.
can. Fair. Month afternoon, there you go. But we can work through those. We will get that. I don't think that they're gonna have to spend the money prior to us being able to get something done, so we will do that and get faith and in concert with you all to get it done.
So otherwise, Mr. Chairman, the Department of Emergency Management, we're in agreement.
Yeah. And then ethics.
Yes, ethics, we are in agreement. Yes, sir.
Governor's budget, anything to add?
Here's your chance.
We're in agreement.
We're talking about this, me now?
Yeah.
No, we're good. We're good with the flat budget. We're good.
All right, we're in agreement.
Great.
All right, House Representatives,
We're in disagreement.
member parity, what? How can you disagree with that? But go ahead.
Well, there's two portions of the way we're funded. We're funded through our direct appropriation to the House, and we're funded through the LSP. And there's a split that takes into account member salaries. Obviously, there's a difference with 101 members versus 48 there. We serve collectively the same exact population. We've got staff attorneys, we've got directors, but I would think if you look at the split, you all are sitting on about $40 million that you have at LSB. You've had a total of 60 come through there. You haven't drawn down about $20 million that's been appropriated already. And
We're
so
on the House budget, not else.
they are connected. They are connected. You paid for travel to Normandy out of the LSP budget out of there. So I believe that we can stay flat, you can stay flat, and we'd be just completely fine.
Well, our position was LSB was to back out 8 mil.
Yeah, we're good with
We're in
backing that out.
agreement. We're in agreement with that.
Yes, sir.
So
For the
then,
IT upgrades.
back to the House and Senate budget, whenever you look at parity by member for each of these.
That's a bogus calculation. I appreciate you trying to do that. We agreed to a 60-40 split on LSP that I've regretted ever since I made it. I hope Senator McCourtney and Representative Hilbert work that out to where it's more equal for the.
Should be 68-32.
It's ludicrous to think that we don't, our office budgets are less than your office budgets are already, and we serve twice the number of constituents roughly. And so I think when you're talking about flat budgets and being willing to go flat, I think you all should be willing to go flat. We're more than willing to go flat.
The House will stay flat, and then we can get parity in a cut to the Senate.
That's asinine. The agreement that we've had previously, you are getting, if you want to go through the LSB split and the expenditures out of LSB, you are setting on 2 drawdowns of $10,120,582. So you multiply that two that you have not drawn down yet that are already sitting there for you.
So what I'm talking about is the House and the Senate operation budgets.
I understand
For the two branches.
they are LSB and House and Senate. We can play around to think they're not.
So as you stated, there's a split in LSB that's based on members, correct?
Because salaries come out of there, yes, sir. And travel. And per
So
diems.
whenever you're looking at the two budgets for both Senate and House, there's still twice as many +3 members of the House versus the Senate. Still have members who serve by staff, have more cost there as well.
You all are doing quite well.
But we do not have parity with the Senate in the operations budget.
I would argue you don't have parity with us in a lot of areas. I think that.
That is obvious.
That's a joke, obviously.
I can joke right back.
Yeah.
Well,
But
we got the witness this week,
the- But
Incompetence and dysfunction does not equal transparency, but
incompetence
We're
and dysfunction is a very, just as the speaker-elect was fair to point out, or the floor leader, that, me calling things pet project may have been disparaging to you. I agreed that, we say things in press conferences quickly. To say incompetence and dysfunction is not an accurate description of what you've seen on the Senate side. What you've seen on the Senate side is a complete commitment to transparency. We will not get everything perfect, nor will future legislatures, but this is our first foray into trying to go down that road. And I am proud of the members that I serve with that have put in the work. And so I take offense at that.
well, I'm very proud of the members I serve with, and we have put in the work. We've had those meetings, budget reviews and hearings, committee work, and, as always, the House is here and ready to get our constitutional one and only duty done, balanced budget by the last Friday in May.
Yep.
And we will get there.
We will get here, but by May 31st, I agree. I think we agreed to these numbers. I don't have the history there. I think we stayed flat last year. I'm not sure.
We both did.
And I think our position is we stay flat, both of us again. And that the LSB, we agreed to the taking out the $8 million that was for the IT.
So a little more of the history, the year before COVID, a lot of discussion, and
You're gonna feel different about this tomorrow, aren't you?
What? I mean, y'all went back to your 416 number. If you're talking about vacillating, we've seen it before our very eyes today. The budget, no, I will not feel different. I think the Senate should stay flat. I believe the House should stay flat. I think we should take $8 million out for one-time two-time IT expense. So no, I do not feel different.
so the year before COVID, a lot of discussion, worked on getting some parity, and I said it on the floor, it's recorded. I will be back next year to get parity with the House and Senate budget. Then COVID hit, and we actually had to cut both budgets. Still do not have parity.
I think if you look at the LSP split, you have more than enough parity between the two of us. That's not for us to renegotiate right now. The Speaker and I have agreed we're not moving that split, but I do believe that should be reevaluated once I'm done.
So we're working on the FY25 budget.
We are.
Yes, sir.
But the split will go to that. I just think we can live within our means. I think you can live within your means. We have agreed 2 years on this number. I don't think the governor's agreed to stay flat. I think we should agree to stay flat.
I believe we should have parity by member in the appropriation, so.
Well, you do when you look at the totality of our budget that's combined between the LSB and the House and the Senate budget.
Well, if you state that the split is 60-40, is that the split?
60-40, yeah. On I don't have the sheet in front of me on that. I just was looking at what the carryovers are and all of that. I think y'all are in a very good.
So whenever you
position.
say you're looking at carryovers, but you're not considering the split, I mean, I would make the argument, as the House done a better job managing funds? I'm not, no, but if there's a split based on membership basis, that's what I'm talking about on the House and Senate budget. You take the number of members that the Senate has, take your budget divided by 48, that number times 2 are 101. There's a parity deficit for the House of $4.1 million.
I appreciate that you want to increase your budget by $5 million. We disagree with that.
We'll stay flat. We just need you to decrease the Senate budget by 4.1 for parity.
We're not agreeing to either one of those. So I think we should move on and come back to this.
We will come back to it. All right.
Where do you want to go next, Mr. Chairman?
Next is LSB, which I think
We're in
were
agreement.
on that.
We're still in agreement.
Yeah, still in agreement.
Lieutenant Governor's budget. In agreement?
We are in agreement.
OME, yes.
Yes. Oh, you all jumped over. Now you jumped over. didn't you?
Well, I was trying to follow you. I don't know where it's at on your sheet either,
Oh,
but
that was his thing, Darby.
Yeah, that's right. So we are in agreement.
We
We've
are
been
in
in agreement for some time. Yep.
Service Oklahoma.
Service Oklahoma, yeah, so I believe that believe that we're in agreement. I just want some clarification on the, on SB 2035. That we now know that OETA can cover that.
OTA.
I mean, OTA. Who'd I say?
OETA.
Big difference.
If we LCF it, though.
All right, funny. So I think we're in agreement, but I just, it wasn't in your portal, and so we just wanted to.
Yeah, we had confirmation. Did you get confirmation from Joe on startup costs as well? I know we had confirmation to do the recurring.
I don't recall, getting that. Staff receive it.
Yeah, well, that'll be something certain. We just need to confirm with Turnpike Authority. They're doing the startup. I know they're doing the recurring costs, but we need to confirm. They should be doing both because they're going to net very positive from the Mason Street Act.
Right.
All right. Military Department.
Military Department, I show that, that we're in agreement, save one category, that's the removal of the workforce defense contract. The subcommittees have, the full subcommittee reconvened, and that of course was the $6 million that was provided in their base for the defense contract purposes. That contract actually went to another country, and so that $6 million was not used. And so we're reflecting a pullback of those unused funds back into GR.
Yes, I had us in agreement to leave it in there for a JCAB on a retirement program.
So there was discussion about the retirement program. I think it even went farther than the retirement program too. I think there was a naming of the facility. Although I got notice that the JCAB, the potential JCAB had changed and the removal of that name had come out. Is that correct?
Yeah, there was some rumors that the bill wasn't heard or was going to be heard because it was a naming of the facility. The naming of the facility has absolutely nothing to do with the funding of retirement. I just told them to take it out.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's, I'm not sure that the naming of the facility was the hang up. I think the retirement recruitment piece was what was part of discussion around the subcommittee, and the need for that whenever whenever they could be full-time and be able to cover that gap area that we were trying to address with the dollars that you were going to leave in the budget. I think we can certainly continue to have those discussions, but I think that to keep everything clear, it certainly makes sense in my mind that if we provided money for a particular program and it was not used, that it makes sense to pull that back. We can discuss, we'd be open for discussion of naming the facility.
It's not a budgetary
facility, certainly, but the facility needs a name.
I think we have that covered. So here's what we'll do. I'll agree to pull the one-time out from last year, but we're going to put on our sheet the funds necessary for the recruitment and retirement program.
Well, I don't know that we've agreed on
We'll have
the
another
retire recruitment, but you will come to our position to remove the dollars that
I will
we're
remove
using.
it, but I'm adding 6 million for retirement and recruitment.
Well, so we won't agree on that line item.
Then we're in disagreement.
Was that a request from the general?
It was presented to by the adjutant general. It was not a request. He had a flat budget request. I was informed, and I was not in the meeting, so it's all hearsay, but there were multiple senators in the meeting that I was informed about, and Senator Thompson and I believe Hall was there as well. But
I don't know what you're referring to.
that's whenever we had the agreement to leave the funds in for the new program.
It was just my understanding that did not come. That's been a continuous line of questioning from both us and you.
Okay.
Was that an agency request? And I don't think the adjutant general requested that in his budget, is my understanding.
He did not have it in October, but he did come and present that it would help with recruitment and retirement on the project, and expressed that would love to have the funds and needed them.
We can certainly come back to that.
All right.
Hey, gentlemen, it's 5 o'clock. We are making tremendous progress, and I think we can continue the progress. But for the sake of time, do you guys want to stay and keep going? Does anybody want to break?
Good to keep going.
Good as long as we.
As long as you guys are,
We can take a little break and come right back.
huh?
We can take a break and come right back. We have a deadline to get some stuff done.
Okay.
Order some dinner.
Huh?
We want to order some dinner.
I know. Do we need to order dinner for everybody?
If you want to get us some pizza and beer, we'd be fine.
Okay, well, let's do a 5-minute break.
Start making pizza.
Can the Thunder game go on these later?
8:30.
still got a few holdovers here, so,
Congratulations.
That's awesome.
yeah, you guys are doing great.
You got started knocking.
So let's, you guys are making tremendous progress. Let's, turn it back over to you,
runs.
Where you want to
Chairman
go?
Paul.
Finish up Gen Gov, we have Senate next, which we agreed to disagree, then Treasurer.
Yeah, the treasurer, we're in agreement.
Finish up, Gen Gov Transportation, I've got Aeronautics Commission. I'd have this down in agreement, we're gonna change. Where's Aeronautics?
They have it all in the same.
I know, but it's the middle of the sheet.
Yes, sir.
So yes, we're in agreement.
3/1/16.
All right, outside of,
Side, we're in agreement.
all right, transportation.
Okay, so we are in agreement for most things. There was an ODOT $500 million bond authorization that was not in your portal, that our subcommittee took up, or can we get to an agreement on that? These are TIFIA bonds.
I
Sorry.
have the notes on, the back page. We were in agreement with the authorization, breakdown on that would be.
So you have the three pieces of that: the Roosevelt Bridge and the widening of I-35 South and the realignment of US 81.
200, 150, 150, totaling 500.
Yes.
Yes.
And we're in agreement.
All right, no other changes on transportation?
One more, so this is just an effect, so I have it tied in as it's just a discussion point. So our bill, Mr. Chairman, Senate Bill 1403, which is the motor vehicle apportionment, removing the cap on 2015 apportionment. There was an amendment was made in the House to cap that at a 25 level. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I think you'll see me be willing to accept those amendments, but it's just you weren't reflecting the cost of that apportionment in on your sheet. I think we'd like to see you include that.
Do you have the impact court?
That's $8,455,000.
$8,455,000.
That's
Even?
That's the apportioned amount.
Okay.
It'll be a revenue.
Yeah, it's gonna be on the revenue sheet versus transportation.
All right.
Yeah.
Agreement.
You're accepting the amendments?
I will accept the amendments. I'll accept the amendment, the one that you and I discussed, which was capping it at the 25 level. Is that what that's the amendment?
Well, yeah, we amended it in the House to send it back, so it's in the Senate,
Yeah,
correct?
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then let me, transportation, I was told some change, but where's transportation at on your sheet?
First
I think the only difference is the prep. That's all I see. Yeah. I think the only difference on our sheet is the prep discussion, the prep 2.0. And that was,
Hold on, let's back up. So transportation's here on the top, and I was told that there was the backing out of the 10 mil that we put in last year for lake and industrial access, which I do not have that.
well,
It's showing up on your sheet there.
we had it on we had the back out on your 416 and your 5.6 on the portal.
I think you guys were not backing out the 10, but adding
Right.
6.2.
Right.
So we would
That
reflect.
equates to the basically agreement on the 6.24.
So we're backing out the 10 and adding 16.2.
You're going, yeah, 16 then?
Yes.
16.2.
So we're saying.
Okay, yeah, same
thing.
thing.
It's the same thing.
On my sheet, I just had additional 6.2, so I thought.
Yeah, no, it's the same thing.
We're just saying last year was a one time and now this year this is the new appropriation for this
That's correct.
Okay.
And while we're on Gen Gov, Joey Kelly with the Turnpike confirmed they're good with the upfront and the recurring costs of the ticket tax. Great.
Well, I know we're making very good progress. I heard that some dinners, district, with a tornado, Sulphur,
Maybe I head back to Salt.
Governor, you have
I
obligations as well?
can certainly find obligations.
Oh,
I've already
hang out
canceled
with
my,
us.
one appointment, but we've done great progress. And you have a birthday party to go to?
I've got a family that wants me back, but I'm fine with reconvening Monday morning if we need to, or what have you.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm just so thrilled. We have made tremendous progress. And so I would encourage, the two chairs to meet publicly, privately, however the leaders want to do that. We can meet back together Monday. If you guys want in this same format, or you guys can work among yourselves and then we get back together publicly on Wednesday. I'm open to anything.
Sounds good. Monday's good with me. Just in closing, I want to thank the Senate leadership for their work and input today. Governor, thank you for yours. My only request would be, perhaps my only request would be if this Senate's discussions among their members, if you could bring us back what the Senate's interested in along the lines of a tax cut for our next round of meetings. That would be helpful.
One thing on the discussion for timeline on Monday, which I do have out notice on JCAB meetings. We talked about getting the bill for emergency management out on the funds. I have it slated at 9 o'clock. Is that acceptable for the Senate?
We're going to have to get the language out. You still want to stay with the 4 days.
Yeah, I think we could, I want to make one exception. If we have to get this 45 million, as long as we see the language and it's agreeable, we'll figure out a way to make it work post haste. We are committed to trying to make sure there's 48 hours between, but we also understand the uniqueness of this request. So we'll figure it out and we'll work together on that. 9 a.m. on Monday. I don't know. We don't have to meet exact same time.
We do not. That's the meeting notice that I put out. And so everybody knows, we put out a meeting notice for tomorrow, for Saturday, and then Monday through Friday of next week. I'm hopeful that we'll start running some bills very quickly.
We'll be reasonable. Let me talk to the team. We may not go 9 a.m. Monday. We'll try to get maximum exposure to the language that we can. I don't know, is that something you all are drafting? Is it something OEM is sending us?
I believe McFetridge is working on it.
I have a revolving fund to set up this liquidity aspect, but we've given the new director at OEM some time to provide us feedback for any statutory impediments or guardrails that they need to make this all move smoother. I'm expecting some feedback from her. That's why I can't commit to what the drafting would be, because I don't know the full scope of it yet. But the basis of the revolving fund allowing OEM to enter memorandums of understanding with FEMA declared local communities, identifying the payback source of funds, that's the gist of the main revolving funds.
We will not be an impediment to that getting done swiftly. We'll just look for the language at the first available opportunity. We'll put out, I'll consult with the chairman and we'll figure out what notice time we need to put out. But consider this notice to the public that we're looking at $45 million for the Office of Emergency Management. We're trying to be able to allow them to be able to upfront some cash for these communities that don't have the cash flow to be able to cover their 12.5%. We also have the state match at 12.5 that we traditionally do for the total of 25% between state and local, and then the feds go down 75. So that's what we're talking about, and if that's what we're all on the same page with, we will not delay that unnecessarily. We will make sure that we'll get that done as quickly as possible next week.
Then sometime after the JCAB meetings, then we'll try to gather again on budget timeline.
I think we can circle up some times with everyone. And,
Just let us know this weekend. Thanks for
The coordinator or something.
Yep, sounds good to me.
Thank you. All right, thanks, everybody.
Appreciate it. See y'all.